The Laker Movie Nerd Review Podcast, the newly formed and combined love child of the Movie Nerd and Oswegonian's Laker Review Podcast.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Say what again? Say what again?
Why so serious?
Watch what happens. Well, what happened is this bull would go right through your fucking head. Watch what happens.
I am the one who knocks.
All right, people, so we're officially back. I don't even know what you want to call it. It's the mix between the Laker Review. It's also the Movie Nerd Podcast. It's a lot of things going on all at once. Who am I? You guys know who I am. If any of you out there have actually been listening to this, I don't know, maybe you might be now. I am the one, the only, the movie nerd himself, Dominic Rizzi. For all of you people out there who actually follow me on the various trivia schmoedowns, movie trivia schmoedown spin-offs that I've been competing in online, you will know me as such. But that is not the role that I'm taking on today. The role that I'm taking on today is that of my official position here at SUNY Oswego, and that is as the Laker Review editor. I am a section editor. That's right. I am officially a paid member for a student newspaper, and I hold an official position, so let me savor that while I still can. But I'm not alone this time around. No, this time, see, my Infinity War spoiler talk was such a success, or a success in my eyes at the very least, that I decided to keep bringing back people, and I brought back someone who I've done a couple podcasts with now. He is probably the best damn writer I have on the Oswegonian staff right now, and he is here with me, Mr. Garrick Groover. How are you doing, man?
Hey Dom, it's great to be back.
Oh, it's awesome to be here. I mean, we met just about a year ago.
Yes.
We had a class together. We both found out we were both writers, and it's just, some friendships are just meant to happen, So, yeah, so we got a lot of stuff to talk about today because this is our first official episode back, and we are coming off of one of the craziest summers to in existence. I thought last summer and the summer before were crazy. I don't think they have anything on this summer because we have Muppets killing each other. We have apparently not just Warner Brothers, but Disney now is just losing it. You have Netflix is just churning out thing after thing after thing. And Disney is now getting prepared full steam to launch their stuff. And of course, more Me Too scandals, because God forbid that people actually learn how to be decent human beings. So, just to start off simple, I have struggled to put more of an emphasis this semester on movie news in addition to the reviews that were going in the Laker Reviews section. And I've honestly been really impressed with the turnout. I really have been. Shout outs to all my new writers, Brian Trombley, Stephen Novak, Mary-Kate Moylan, continuing with the music reviews that have been happening per week. And really impressed with the stuff that I've gotten so far. So, Garrick, summer of 2018 rolls around, right? Well, I mean, first it gets kicked off with Infinity War, which, I mean, we've already talked, let's face it, we've already talked ad nauseum about that movie. And broke all sorts of box office records. People are still talking about it just as if the movie is still in theaters. I think the movie is still playing in some theaters. I think I checked the Destiny USA times and it was still playing in IMAX or something.
I mean, I think I even still find Black Panther playing at some theaters.
True.
I mean, that movie's on Netflix.
Yeah, that movie's on Netflix now, and people are still watching it in theaters. Incredibles 2, I know they put back in theaters, but that was only because of the one scene that we both know about got cut because a lot of people had obviously very legitimate concerns with that for the epileptic crowd, more specifically. You know the scene that I'm talking about. So, yeah, needless to say that between those three movies alone, the box office of 2018 is doing much, much better than last year. Because remember last year when they were talking about how the box office was at an all-time low, and I saw the movies that were coming out this year, and I'm like, yeah, between three movies alone this summer, nobody's going to be, the one thing that people are not going to be complaining about at all this summer is the box office.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Infinity War, I believe it's the fourth movie to cross the $2 billion mark?
I think so, yeah. It still hasn't touched Force Awakens yet, so I was wrong on that count. I very much thought that Infinity War was going to overtake Force Awakens, but I guess not. So close, Marvel, so close. I mean, you're still beating them in quality, so that's what matters, because Disney still has a little movie called The Last Jedi on their hands, but that's not what we're here to talk about. So just start knocking some stuff out of the way. Some of the news stories that have popped up, and I believe all of these you will be able to find in the Laker Review section for the Oswegonian. We have James Gunn, we have Henry Cavill, we have Louis C.K. is back apparently, we have Burt Reynolds, unfortunately, tragically passing away at the ripe old age of 82. Rest in peace, Burt. He gave us a lot of entertainment and a lot of good stuff to remember you by. So hopefully you'll be able to keep on riding or keep on trucking. What was the lyrics in that song? I don't remember. It's been so long. And the latest sex scandal, this time from Olivia Munn, an actress who I have never necessarily found to be that talented, for lack of a better word. But I definitely do sympathize with her and empathize with her as a human being and agree that nobody should ever have to go through what she went through.
I mean, I've always found Olivia Munn, there's certain projects where you can tell she's not really suited. For example, The Predator, definitely miscast there.
Definitely.
But I thought she was good on The Newsroom. I think that's her best role so far.
Yeah, I still haven't watched The Newsroom, from what I've heard, a very underrated, very overlooked HBO show. But I've heard, every time somebody's talked about it, I've heard great things about it. So I will definitely be sure to check it out, especially from one of my favorite creators working right now, Aaron Sorkin.
Yes.
So.
Aaron Sorkin, probably my favorite screenplay of his is probably The Social Network.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
That's arguably one of the best screenplays I've ever heard.
That Oscar was deserved.
Oh, absolutely. So, just to start off, something simple, something that's been talked about ad nauseum, but just so that we can get it out of the way, just get our thoughts about it. James Gunn, officially out of Guardians of the Galaxy 3. This has been a back and forth issue since Comic-Con weekend back in July when it was first officially announced. This was because, what was the guy's name? Mike Chernovich was the guy's name?
Mike Cernovich.
Mike Cernovich, alt-right, conspiracy theorist, for lack of a better word?
Something like that.
It doesn't matter what his official term is. What does matter?
He's an InfoWars affiliate.
Yeah, exactly.
So you know what you're getting with him.
Exactly. So basically, the point being that I guess James Gunn was just being a little bit too vocal about our delightful president. No opinions will be said there because this is movies, not politics. And so as a result, he ended up bringing up tweets that Mr. Gunn had put out around 2009, 2010, back when he was working for Troma Studios. And needless to say, if you have read the tweets, you know exactly what they are, you know how disgusting they are, and you know what the content of them is. And as a result, Gunn was promptly fired. So promptly fired, in fact, that he wasn't even aware of it until he looked at the news. I'm pretty sure Gunn found out about it before Kevin Feige did, and they both found out about it the same way. But needless to say, once he found out, Feige was like, I'm getting back to the studio ASAP because somebody's got to do something about this. He's like, are you kidding me? Arguably one of my biggest creative powerhouses just got canned, and I need to find out what's going on. And so he did. It basically set all of Hollywood ablaze because apparently, not just us as viewing audiences, but everyone in Hollywood loves the Guardians of the Galaxy movies so much to the point that we had other celebrities coming out and criticizing Disney. One in particular, of course, being Guardians of the Galaxy cast member Dave Bautista, famous for playing Drax the Destroyer, who has gone on a Twitter tirade against Disney with such statements as something along the lines of embellishing fascist regimes. So, and that he doesn't want to work for them as a result anymore, even though everyone was coming out though about this, unfortunately it did not do anything in changing Disney's mind, specifically that of Disney chairperson Alan Horn. So as a result, Gunn has promptly been not let back on, and Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is now on permanent hiatus. And Garrick, when this first happened back in July, when you first saw James Gunn fired from Guardians of the Galaxy, what was the first thing that just came into your head?
Definitely shock. It was definitely surprising news because we all know James Gunn, Marvel had big plans for him as he was going to be the architect of the more cosmic aspect of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I saw the tweets, of course, I thought they were abhorrent, of course. But the thing about the James Gunn tweets is that, Disney, I think they went on record saying, oh, we didn't they try to do the PR game saying, oh, we didn't know about those tweets. So, yeah, BS.
Yeah, totally. Come on. You hired the guy. Now, granted, what I will give them is that Twitter practices back in 2014 in terms of actually doing background research, specifically in the entertainment industry, which, as progressive as they like to act, has always been notoriously behind everything else, was not what it was back in 2014. But even still, come on. Hollywood knows things. And they like to play face for certain things, like with Kevin Spacey, where, oh, we didn't know he was secretly gay and also secretly a pedophile. BS. I was definitely shocked, but then I read the tweets, and then I did some thinking, and I was like, okay, come on. First off, it's very, very clear that this guy does not actually think these things. He was just saying it to be shocking.
Yeah, and edgy humor. You know, we've all tried to like be that in like high school, where we try to like be funny to impress people. But the thing about this entire thing is that people are trying to like smear or like drag James Gunn's name through the mud, saying that, oh, you know, this guy supports, you know, like pedophilia or something like that, you know?
Yeah, see, and that's the weird thing is that I've actually gotten the opposite effect from that, which is where like literally everybody is now dragging Disney, like whatever, like, so people have obviously been going off on Disney ever since they announced that they were buying up Fox. You know, everybody's like, oh, Disney, like they can really control everything now. They're buying up everything. They're creating a monopoly. But now it's like people are really getting down their throats, specifically with this Bautista thing where he's literally directly calling them out as being fascists, you know? And of course there's been a bunch of talk of like, oh, how is this going to affect his future, you know? Like with what happens after Avengers 4, you know, with Guardians 3 on hold right now, it's looking right now that, at least for the time being, those Guardians are not coming back from Thanos' snap, you know? Maybe one or two of them, maybe Groot, you know, maybe Gamora, because they could do more with her, but like, and Quill, that's up in the air right now, but at least in terms of Drax, like, I can't see him coming back from that snap, not after everything that he's saying, plus everything I've been hearing about getting rep by that big new talent agency, plus with everything that Bautista's been in outside of the Marvel movies, he's been doing pretty well for himself career-wise, and also just the fact that he's been saying a lot about like doing reshoots for Infinity War and how whatever happens, he will not be interested in Volume 3. So, with that being said, Garrick, like, I can't see Bautista like really coming back after Avengers 4 if Gunn is not brought back on, which Alan Horn has made specifically clear that will not happen.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think that if Bautista is going to be vocal and more, maybe Disney will kind of like sever those ties, because when you're making a movie, you don't kind of want that much drama on set.
Right.
You know, and from what I understand, Disney, they're still going with James Gunn's script for Guardians 3.
To my knowledge, yes, that is what they're doing.
And people have been like, who do you think they're going to get to replace Gunn? I've heard people want like Taika Waititi to come on board.
Yeah, everybody's been screaming the praises about Taika Waititi. My thing is just that Disney seems to be at a crossroads, because literally every single director that I think they've approached has pretty much said the same thing. Now, like I said, another vocal one is Joe Carnahan, who is somebody that they actually approached, the director of the A-Team theatrical adaptation released back in 2010 and The Grey. Not a bad choice. He's definitely got a lot of styling and sensibilities that go hand in hand with Gunn's. I mean, you want my take, I say you go Matthew Vaughn, because like he's probably like outside of Taika, like don't get me wrong, I like Taika, but there are still things with Thor Ragnarok and the way that movie played out that just don't appeal to me stylistically the way that Gunn is able to do with the Guardians movies. So I definitely think that in terms of like maintaining that heart, I think Matthew Vaughn would be the best choice. But that's just me. Like I said, as of right now, the Disney doesn't even know what they're doing. Like I don't know if they're using the script, the soundtrack, what's going on. Like the last thing that we heard is that this movie is on hold. So I'm still of the opinion that if they don't get Gunn back in some capacity, this movie doesn't happen. But again, that's just my take on it.
I do think this movie will be made at some point, because you know, Guardians of the Galaxy, this is it's like this team that no one really knew before the 2014 movie, except if you were like a hardcore comic geek, of
right.
course.
And then the 2014 movie comes out, and arguably I would say they are up there as being the second most, like they are up there with the Avengers and Black Panther in terms of being in the upper echelon of Marvel popularity. You know, Ant-Man was up there, but I would say that he's definitely taken a little bit of a backseat just because of his reduced role in the MCU. But yeah, like the Guardians are arguably have taken their place as like being in the upper echelon of pop culture that's talked about, just in terms of Marvel and the role that they've taken. So
yeah, it's like Marvel can make a talking tree and a talking raccoon work, and yet DC can't get their own hero straight.
Yeah,
you know?
and so, I mean, guess that's as good of a segue as ever. But just to wrap up that story, yeah, James Gunn, I don't know what you're going to do next, but if you're smart, you'll stay away from DC, because we're going to talk about that next. And, yeah, just go keep making cool things, because I definitely think just because, you know, who knows what just because your future with Guardians of the Galaxy and Marvel is up in the air right now doesn't mean that you can't keep still making amazing projects, because you showed that you are a creative force to be reckoned with. So yeah, just keep going and keep kicking ass. All right, so now we move on to the other big studio that just doesn't know when to quit. Oh my God, like, remember back, I would say it was probably late 2016, early 2017, right before Wonder Woman was about to come out, when it just felt like we heard a different story about DC every single week. You know, it was a lot of stuff was concerning Ben Affleck, because Was that before or after Justice League? I can't remember. I get my timelines all mixed up.
As I remember, there was a story that came out in the Hollywood Reporter. This was before San Diego Comic-Con, I believe 2017. And it was a story about how Ben Affleck is, he's not returning to the role as Batman. And of course, WB denied this because they had to, because, they had a movie to promote.
Right.
And then, of course, you had Ben Affleck go up on stage saying, oh, I'm Batman. It's so cool to be Batman.
Yeah.
And now you got this talk about Henry Cavill leaving.
Yeah, now, which brings us
it's
into...
what? It's like WB, I mean, they've handled, like, stuff like Harry Potter well, for the most part. Of course, you have the Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah, but the 2000s, I will agree. Like, WB has proven that they know how to handle franchises, but just with DC, like, they do not know what they're doing. Like, oh my God. Like, I thought that Sony was bad with the Amazing Spider-Man movies, but Jesus Christ, WB, like, every single time we think that you're gonna make like an improvement on something, like it's like 1 step forward, 15 steps back. Like, come on, like, when are they gonna learn? So just to clue you guys in on what we're talking about, so this story has not officially been published in the paper yet, but the story dropped on Thursday, I believe it was. No, not Thursday, Wednesday. I remember on Wednesday that apparently WB has severed ties with Henry Cavill and that he will not be returning as Superman. This is after the critical love that Henry Cavill had already gotten for his role in Mission Impossible Fallout, which already caused another scandal with the whole mustache debacle, and has also revealed that he is taking the lead role in the upcoming Netflix adaptation of The Witcher, which, correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't exactly done my research on The Witcher, but is that some sort of anime or like a video game or something like that?
Well, I've played The Witcher 3, the video game, and I believe they're based on a bunch of Polish novels.
Okay.
Polish fantasy novels.
Okay. Yeah, so basically, for lack of a better word, like Henry Cavill, another one that's out, like, first Ben Affleck is driven into rehab, for lack of a better word, which, I mean, look, the dude's all been struggling with, like, alcoholism and all sorts of, like, addictions since the early 2000s when that was first really brought to light. And, like, I'm not going to say, like, the guy deserves anything bad to happen to him, but, like, it was made very clear that something that he thought was going to be, like, the best thing that could have ever happened to him, something that was going to give him kind of carte blanche with Warner Brothers to do whatever he wanted going forward, ended up backfiring in his face. And honestly, I don't blame him for that, because that is honestly on Warner Brothers, because the fact that they screwed up so royally with Batman vs. Superman and everything that's happened since then is kind of on them. But this Henry Cavill thing, it's kind of the opposite thing, because Henry Cavill, unlike Affleck, was still singing the praises for Batman versus Superman. Like, obviously that's become like one of the biggest memes that you've even talked about, where, it's the interview with Cavill and Affleck next to each other. Cavill is like, really enthusiastic and, making all these hand motions and talking, and Affleck is just sitting there looking depressed and miserable. And apparently, like, Henry it looks like he's getting the better end of the deal for this, because even though, yes, he did enjoy playing Superman, and this is another thing that I have to respect Cavill for, is that he really does try to do his best to pay homage to these characters, and he does very passionately care about the roles that he takes and wanting to do right by both the fans and just, deliver the best that he can. So I'd give him a lot of props for that. The problem is that he has just become aware that the studio that he works for, at least in this case, just does not know what they are doing. And it looks like, from my point of view, I don't know if this was Warner Brothers or him, but I have a feeling that Cavill was willing to come back and do it because he noticed the new direction that DC was sort of taking. Again, Justice League was already in the pipeline, so that was going to happen no matter what. But I feel like with Wonder Woman, that's really the first big thing that shows this new direction that DC has taken. And we'll see how Aquaman and Shazam do, but for the most part, Shazam looks like it could, for the most part, be following in that new direction that they claim to be taking. But yeah, with Cavill, like, well, what do you think this is? Do you think this is Warner Brothers? Do you think this is Cavill's managerial team? Like, what do you think this is? Because, like, Cavill, to my knowledge, wanted to still play Superman.
Yeah, it's like this entire WB Cavill debacle has been, so, like, frustrating because, it's like Cavill, I'm a big Man of Steel defender. I will defend Man of Steel to the day I die. And then, of course, you had 3 years and Batman v Superman came out, and of course, that like took a big dump on like everything.
Oh God, yeah, we know.
And then then you had like Suicide Squad, and of course, Wonder Woman was like the light at the end of the tunnel.
Pretty much.
And then Justice League was like, let us down.
Why?
It's just, and I think it's like you said, it's like the DCU. It's like, sure, like, you got the trailers for Aquaman and like Shazam. Like, okay, I'm interested. And of course, you got Wonder Woman 1984 in the pipe. But there was a time when it seemed like every single week there was like a new DC movie in development. Like, oh, we're doing like a Deadshot movie. We're doing a Black Adam movie. Now there's talks about
Birds of Prey, Suicide Squad 2. Now the big thing is we're doing a standalone Joker movie that's got nothing to do with this current canon that Todd Phillips is directing. Like, I remember when I first heard this story, I thought that was a hoax, because remember, that was around this time last year when they said that like Martin Scorsese was going to like executive produce like a gangster-esque Joker movie that Leonardo DiCaprio was going to star in, and then it somehow transitioned to this. And then this one, it's like, when I hear the casting, I'm excited for the casting, because like Joaquin Phoenix, Mark Maron, Robert De Niro, like, what? But yeah, like it just I have no idea what to make of Warner Brothers at this point. Like, what are you guys doing? What are you doing?
I mean, just take up the development of this Flash movie. Originally, I think they were talking to the directors of 21 Jump Street, Phil Lord.
Lord and Miller, yeah. Lord and Miller were definitely in the discussion at one point, but they were so involved with that Star Wars Lucasfilm debacle that happened with Solo that, like, I don't think that, and they already saw what happened with Justice League, so they wanted nothing to do with Warner Brothers, and rightfully so.
And then Seth Grahame-Smith, I believe his name is, signed aboard. It was going to be his directorial debut. He was a screenwriter. I think he wrote the Lego Batman movie. He was one of the writers.
Yeah, he was one of the writers for that. He also, if I'm not mistaken, helped to contribute to either the script or directed Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, but you might want to fact check me on that one. Then there was I think that the writers, and then it went to, for a little while, I also know it went to the director of Dope, Rick Famuyiwa, but he dropped out immediately because like he probably like, I have to make your movie, not my movie. Screw off then.
And then there was rumors that, like Robert Zemeckis and like Sam Raimi were approached.
Yeah, that was happening. And then like they settled on directors Goldstein and Daly, who did the Vacation reboot and Game Night, which is still one of my favorite films of this year. And now I think they left as well, because I think the whole thing that they were trying with Flash was Flashpoint. Well, it was going to be called Flashpoint, and Flashpoint was supposed to be kind of their Days of Future Past to kind of like save this train wreck of a series. The only problem is they just have no sense of continuity, that they just don't know how to do it properly, you know?
Yeah, and now it's come to this point where like I'm not like every time like WB announces a new DC movie, I'm like, sure, yeah, that's really going to happen. Like, for example, if tomorrow WB announced like a Hawkman movie with like Steven Soderbergh directing or something, like, okay, sure, like, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it at this point.
Is it bad that I actually really want to see that movie now? I mean, honestly, you just literally, within 3 minutes, you just came up with a better idea for a movie than half of the ideas that Warner Brothers has announced for their last, 20 movies that they've announced that most likely won't happen.
I mean, they're talking now of doing a Supergirl movie instead of doing another, like, Superman movie, and they're talking about making I've heard rumors that the new Superman, they're trying to get, like, Michael B. Jordan.
Oh, God. Like, that's not happening. That is just a rumor that they invented to try and cover up the fact that they were losing one of their major assets. And it's an idiotic story, to say the least, because there's no way that's happening. Michael already escaped one burning ship with Fox's Fantastic Four and was literally given a life raft and elevated up to the heavens with Marvel and Black Panther. And now he is, like, king of the world as, like, one of their most well-received supervillains to this date. Like, he is not going anywhere near DC if he's smart, you know? He's already got another movie coming out down the pipeline, Creed 2, which, again, this is going to be the disappointing thing, but Creed 2 is honestly, regardless of whether it's good or not, I can already tell it's going to go the way of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, where it's going to get talked about for about 2 minutes, and then it's going to be completely overpowered by everything else, which is really disappointing, because for as worried as I was about that movie with Coogler leaving and everything, I'm still happy that movie's happening, and I do still think it looks good, but still, like, needless to say, though, probably still a better career choice for him than with Fantastic Four or going over to WB. But yeah, so clearly, I think the moral of this story is WB. Once again, it's the same thing that we've literally been saying for years now. Like, I'm literally so sick of saying this because I feel like such a broken record with this, and that is, WB, what are you doing? Like,
is there a plan?
Do they have a plan? No, there isn't. And that's the problem, is they never had a plan to begin with, because their plan was hedge all our bets on Zack Snyder, because he's clearly going to give us something good. Man of Steel, for the most part, worked. And then they dragged their feet, because after that, Marvel released Guardians of the Galaxy and Winter Soldier, and then Age of Ultron, and they're like, well, damn, now, like, they're, like, doing their cinematic universe really well now. And even though that was phase 2, which is arguably the most critically panned phase of Marvel, like DC was still like, oh no. So they were trying to like force all this stuff on Snyder that Snyder never wanted to do in the first place. Like Snyder wanted to do 3 things. He wanted to do Superman origin story, he wanted to do Dark Knight Returns, and he wanted to do Death of Superman. And that's probably, and then he wanted to do Justice League after that. And that was it. Like he had a 5-movie plan and that was it. And then Warner Brothers came in and forced all this stuff on him because they wanted a cinematic universe like Marvel, and now we're stuck in this mess. And then the worst part is that Snyder, regardless of what you think about him creatively and what he did with that series, Snyder was kind of forced out against his will just because he had an idea that didn't go along with the overall trajectory that the studio wanted, because the studio is arguably working for incompetent people. So you have the incompetence of Zack Snyder combined with the incompetence of Warner Brothers, and now you get this giant mess that we are now in. So,
also, I was like, some really weird casting choices for the DCU, like Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the one thing that I'll give them though, is that Warner Brothers has always had that track record of getting those really weird choices that you don't expect. It's just for the most part, it's worked out for them. It's just that now
it worked with Heath Ledger.
It worked with Heath Ledger, exactly, and it worked with Michael Keaton. But it's just that now, because we live in the age of the internet, where there's just so much more emphasis that is put on speculation rather than the actual movie itself, that we can't fully appreciate those roles as much as we do. And like, I'll even be the first person to admit, you like Man of Steel, I don't think Jesse Eisenberg is that bad as Luthor. I think he's the wrong choice for the character, because I think that is just such a different take on that character. But in terms of his actual performance, again, it's nothing that he hasn't done before, because Eisenberg is one of those guys that I see now where, again, it's like a Danny McBride and a Jason Bateman and a Paul Rudd and all those other guys that we have now, where the guys, they get along, they get by playing the same role in every movie, but they are so likable and they have their built-in crowd audience, and they have, just for lack of a better word, charisma and personality that their diehard audience, that their diehard followers will, follow them to their grave. Like, I have one friend who absolutely loves Jesse Eisenberg. He is his absolute favorite part of Batman vs. Superman. And now, granted, that's certainly a different take, but again, it's Batman versus Superman. So, like, the answer in actuality is, who really cares about that movie? So, yeah. In conclusion, like, Warner Brothers, what are you doing? Just, what are you doing?
I mean, I think these characters deserve so much.
Oh my god, absolutely! Like, these characters have been around. The fact that and again, this is another big thing, is that Marvel took C and D-list superheroes and has now made them figments of pop culture. Like, kids growing up now are not going to understand the time before Iron Man came out, when we would be lucky if we got a good superhero movie, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays, like, Marvel can make, like, they can make it like a new Howard the Duck movie.
Pretty much. They did. They basically did. They made a new Howard the Duck movie that was a small figment of Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's great. People love it. Like, again, it's like, it's generating, more internet trends ever. I'm sorry, I don't know, like, internet terminology at all. So if I come across as being completely incompetent in terms of knowing internet trends and technology, apologies in advance. So, yeah. So, moving on from that, we talked about Burt Reynolds. I want to do 2 more stories, one of which is we're probably not going to be able to talk about as much, just simply for the fact of our knowledge of stand-up comedy and just real-world issues versus talking about movies. So we'll probably go quick through those, and then we're going to do a rundown of the last couple movies and TV shows that we've seen, and then we're going to get into the major topic of this podcast, which is a couple of top 10 lists, which is something that I am going to hopefully be bringing back into the paper sometime soon. So, with that said, Garrick, Louis C.K., you a fan of him?
I haven't really seen much of his stuff. I mean, I've seen, like, his guest roles in, like, Parks and Rec and stuff like that, but I've never really taken that much notice in the guy.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing with me, where I watched a couple of his stand-up comedy specials, but I've never been, like, a devoted Louis follower, which, again, like, I guess that's one of the reasons why I wasn't, like, so, like, angry and hurt and made miserable when he was basically forced out of the limelight after he was the next big one brought up a year ago during the resurgence of the hashtag #MeToo, where apparently he just likes pulling out his genitalia and showing it to women without their permission or anything. So,
but to give someone like Louis C.K. credit, this is at least I would say he owned up to everything.
Yes, that is the one
He didn't try
thing.
to pull a Kevin Spacey.
Exactly. That is the one thing that I do give Louis C.K. a lot of credit for, is that he is a guy who definitely came up front and apologized. He didn't try and hide behind any facade. He was like, look, I did this happened, and
I do see him kind of making like a comeback or something.
yeah, and he, like I said, I said this from the beginning, is that, look, as much as, like, I don't condone what he did, and as much as I may not be the biggest Louis fan, of all the people that I see potentially being able to make a comeback, it is him. And apparently he already has, because this news story came out a couple weeks ago where apparently at the New York Comedy Club, he actually made an appearance in one of the cellars just testing out new material, and of course it threw people into an instant craze, but from what I heard, like, he was fully aware. The biggest thing that came out of it is that he was kind of comparing something to rape whistles or something like that. I think was like the most controversial thing he talked about. But for the most part, it's just basically like he's making a comeback, for lack of a better word. Mm-hmm. So I mean, again, there's really not that much to talk about here, which is where he did the thing. He went away. He apparently served his time. He's making it, and we said he could potentially make a comeback, and it looks like he's doing that. So, kudos, I guess. Again, really not that much to talk about here, because I'm really, like, not that big a fan of Louis to begin with. I mean, I watched a couple episodes of his show. I watched some of his stand-up, and it's good. It's not some of, like, my favorite comedy ever, but it's good. Like, he definitely, like, is a guy that knows what he's talking about. Definitely probably talked a little bit too much about, like, genitalia and stuff like that, where it's like, look, still probably one of the funniest jokes for me, though, is the Matthew McConaughey sketch he did in his last Netflix special last year, where he's talking about Matthew McConaughey and Channing Tatum and Magic Mike are some of the only instances that ever made him question his sexuality. And that set was actually pretty good. But yeah, like, he's definitely got a very dry, messed up sense of humor. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate that immensely. But I don't know, maybe it was just his personality that just, like, I never found myself attracted to. There's also the fact of, as the lead of The Secret Life of Pets, I definitely thought that, like, he definitely, I feel like, didn't add anything to that part. So, but that's a completely different topic. So, to kind of wrap this up, this new segment up, for lack of a better word, we have the Predator story. So, Predator, in general, I mean, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Shane Black's new movie that just came out when we get into new movies that came out. But this Predator story, man, Garrick, how much have you heard about this?
I've heard that there was Olivia Munn, like, complained to, I believe it was the Fox executives, that there was, like, a sexual predator, like a former, I would say, sexual predator on set, and that she had his scenes cut from the movie. I believe that's what what the news was talking about. Yeah, well, so I'm pulling up a story right now, and basically the way it goes, I'm on Screen Rant right now, just to let you know, and basically Olivia Munn, who stars in the new movie Predator, she's been in a couple things, as we have talked about before. She was recently in X-Men Apocalypse. She was in The Newsroom. She was also in a comedy that came out in late 2016 as well, called Office Christmas Party. And basically, she brought to 20th Century Fox their attention that apparently there was a scene that featured a registered sex offender, Stephen Wilder Striegel is his name, which prompted the studio to cut it from the final film. So basically, just prior to their screening of the film at Toronto International Film Festival, or TIFF, as, you know, us regular people call it, Fox apparently cut a scene from the film that originally included this man, the registered sex offender, and after Munn brought that up, of course, Shane Black, the director and writer, was brought into question itself, and apparently he was again, it's another PR thing where it's like, oh, I was unaware, I was just doing a favor for a friend of mine, because apparently he brought this guy on because he was a close friend of his or something like that. And of course, Munn goes on about how she's been brutally honest and how she felt super isolated throughout the process. You know, typical things that you expect from people in this situation to say. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm mansplaining or anything, but for lack of a better word, what I do want to talk about is how this happened and how this news story is, of course, I feel like going to overtake the movie, especially once we actually talk about the movie itself and the quality. But, like, Shane Black, this leads me to question him. Like, he's another one of those guys who you start to question, not because he directly participated in something, but just because of his overall take on it. Now, Shane Black, granted, has had a long-lasting tradition of being anti-Hollywood. His scripts have famously included several facets that are directly satirizing and, you know, roasting, for lack of a better word, Hollywood. So my question is, Garrick,
do you think that, how aware do you think Shane was that this was actually happening? And do you think he is even taking this as seriously as he probably should have because of his longstanding opposition to Hollywood and Hollywood practices?
I mean, Shane Black, this is a guy who's, he's definitely someone who's made some great films, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, The Nice Guys, which is really underrated, by the way.
Both extremely underrated
If you haven't seen those movies, definitely check them out. But I don't know, is this like the same controversy like where Disney knew about the James Gunn tweets?
Well,
did Shane Black know that this guy was an actual sex predator?
Well, in looking over the reports, basically everything that I've seen, let me see. Yeah, everything that I've seen. Yeah, so apparently, according to the LA Times, this guy and Shane were friends in 2004 when one of them attended a get-together at one of their home. And then 5 years later in 2009, that's when this guy Striegel was arrested for attempting to apparently he tried to start a sexual relationship with a 14-year-old girl online, and he pled guilty in 2010 to 2 felonies, risk of injury to a child, and enticing a minor by computer, for which he served 6 months in jail. And of course, because of these natures, he was forced to become a registered sex offender. And apparently, because of their friendship, Black actually cast him in 3 different movies. Iron Man 3, and The Nice Guys prior to this one. So, I'm trying to look for Shane's statements that he said on this, because he had a couple things that he said specifically about it. I'm just seeing Munn so far. So far, nothing about Shane yet. But yeah, so basically the studio, this is the studio representative of Fox. Our studio was not aware of Mr. Striegel's background when he was hired. We were not aware of his background during the casting. I'm like, okay, he's a registered sex offender. There's no way you don't know about that. So I'm just skipping past all the studio BS. I'm trying to find what Black actually. Okay, so Black's comment that he initially released to the Times was, he thought Striegel was caught up in a bad situation versus something lecherous. I personally chose to help a friend. I can understand others might disapprove, as his conviction was on a sensitive charge and is not to be taken lightly. And later on issued another statement where, having read this morning's news reports, it has sadly become clear to me that I was misled by a friend I really wanted to believe was telling me the truth when he described the circumstances of his conviction. I believe strongly in giving people second chances, but sometimes you discover that chance is not as warranted as you may have hoped. After learning more about the affidavit, transcripts, and additional details surrounding Steve Striegel's sentence, I am deeply disappointed in myself. I apologize to all of those past and present I've let down by having Steve around them, by giving them a voice in the decision. So again, it sounds like another, to me, again, I'm hearing nothing but PR stance. I'm not getting really a sense of legitimacy. If I had to guess, what most likely happened was he probably cast this guy. He probably knew to some extent what happened. He probably knew that he went to jail, but he probably wasn't exactly sure what happened. He was probably just of the opinion, again, similar to James Gunn, hey, that happened. You don't have to tell me about it. All I know is I'm not going to judge you for it or whatever. And then this whole thing happens, and then he's like, well, now I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. So that's the sense that I'm getting from it, at the very least. I don't know if that's the sense that you're getting from it, though.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, definitely. It's just another case of, this is like what the guy did. Of course, what the guy did was really abhorrent.
Right.
Once we bring like children into it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like that's when we start to get into like Roman Polanski territory. Now, what it doesn't say, which I actually would be interested in, is whether or not the guy was aware that she was 14. But again, like, this is America, and I don't have any illusions about like what people do online. So for right now, I'm leaning towards like, yeah, this guy is for the most part a literal online predator. Again, feel free to make as many jokes about that as possible.
And I think there's people out there saying like, is this going to affect the Predator's box office? But a little preview for what we're going to talk about later.
Yeah,
I don't think so. I think Predator is not going to do well because it's not that good of a movie.
Exactly, it is honestly going to have nothing to do with it. So,
controversy or not?
Yeah, we're at a point now where controversy. Unless it's like something really, really pressing that like affects the movie in general, like it's not going to, like the whole Bryan Singer thing. I'm sorry, with Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm sorry, that's not going to affect the Bohemian Rhapsody box office, not at all. As much as we would
Queen
like
we're
to.
Talking about.
Exactly. So basically, that's the end. That's going to be the end of our news segment, for lack of a better. Like, unless you have anything else that you want to say about this story, other than
no. I think we should talk about the actual movie.
Yeah, first off, so in order to segue into our next segment, which is just talking about some of the movies and TV shows that we've seen recently, Shane Black, make better movies, because, good God, like, were we even watching a Shane Black movie? Like, we both saw this movie yesterday, and so just to give you guys like a little bit of awareness of what's going to happen, we are now going to talk about the last couple of movies and TV shows that we have seen recently. So just these past couple of days, I watched both, obviously, The Predator from Shane Black, and I also watched Paul Feig's new film, A Simple Favor. Garrick, outside of The Predator, have you seen anything new these last couple days?
No, I try to like only get the heavy hitters.
Right, and that's completely understandable. So
because there's only so much you can see.
Oh, I agree.
Time constraints.
Agreed. Yeah, especially being college students and everything. So yeah, this movie, The Predator. Good God, like what was I even watching for most of it? Like
I think you would agree with me. This is, I think, one of the most disappointing movies of the year.
Oh, definitely agreed. But the question is, I think the problem was it was disappointing for. Let's just talk about the movie itself. So this movie happens, and it's a sequel, spin-off, something.
It follows a continuity.
It follows the original Predator continuity that was set up by the original in 87, and then the sequel that came out 2 years later in 89. And this time, of course, Shane Black, who was the script doctor and starred in the original, is writing and directing this time with his Monster Squad co-writer Fred Decker. And the film's got another tremendous ensemble cast, Boyd Holbrook, Trevante Rhodes, Olivia Munn, Keegan-Michael Key, Thomas Jane, Jacob Tremblay, Alfie Allen from Game of Thrones. Like, it's so many people that are in this movie. And, like, I think this movie's biggest problem is tone, for lack of a better word, just to get it started. Like, this movie has no idea what it wants to be. It doesn't know if it wants to be self-aware. It doesn't know if it wants to be a A-team comedy. It doesn't know if it wants to be a horror gore fest. It doesn't know if it wants to be like a straight up monster mash. Like, this movie has no idea what it wants to be tonally, and it tries to be a mix between all of them, and it just doesn't work at all. Like, you agree with that, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, definitely. There's also moments like I think someone like Jeremy Johns pointed out in his review where there's like lots of like kind of like MCU-esque humor in this movie. For me, like some of it didn't land because you have these characters like I talked about like the soldier and militia guys.
Right.
I felt all of them have their quirks. All of them are like very very like they have their quips, their humor, their jokes. But a lot of these jokes I felt didn't land, or like. And it just got like annoying after a while.
Yeah, I agree. And just the jokes aside, I mean, what I will say is that Keegan-Michael Key, look, he was screaming, he was making jokes in all of those trailers, and
you're not in a Key and Peele
exactly,
sketch.
You're not. Well, not just that, because I've seen he was in a Key and Peele sketch movie though, and that was great with Keanu. The problem is that again, it just feels like. I blame Fox mostly for this because I have a feeling that Shane wanted to make a good movie here, but he was just like there were so many studio things that I could tell here because you're right, the Marvel humor that has been in so many big movies these last couple days, because again, Marvel makes it work for the most part really well, but other studios don't, because again, just because it works for Marvel doesn't mean it works for other things, Star Wars, and yeah, it's just like the chemistry between these guys. It's fine, I guess, but the writing is not strong enough to back it up. I mean, it's a good thing that they've got like a really decent batch of actors here, which I really appreciate. But yeah, like the natural progression of the story feels so rushed. Like literally, again, it starts off with the spaceship in the beginning, similar to the original Predator, and then it just bounces around from one thing to another. Like then we're on the ground, like, and it's a military movie, and then like we're with his kid, and like there's this entire half. The subplot that involves this kid, and I feel like I'm watching a completely different movie where I'm just watching this kid go to school and dawdle around and get bullied by bullies, and I'm like, did I walk into a Stephen King movie? Like what did like I feel like I jumped from a somewhat quasi Predator movie to a Stephen King movie, and I have and like it bounces back and forth, and I'm just like totally mind blown. Like, wow, this is somehow even more tonally inconsistent than Sorry to Bother You, the most tonally inconsistent movie of this year. And the editing is terrible. The action, for the most part, is not good. And can we talk about that for a second? Like, the editing of this movie, good God.
I also like to add, so I felt like some of the CGI was really interesting.
Yeah, and I'm going to get to that in a little bit, too. But I just want to talk about the choppy editing, too, because the editing in this movie is so bad that when they finally do get to the point where actual characters start getting killed off and not just like cannon fodder, for lack of a better word, like Predator, or in this case Predator fodder, like the editing is so bad that there'll be points where characters die and I didn't even realize it because it's just a blink and you'll miss it. I'm like, wait, that guy died? Like I barely register it.
Yeah, there's like I would say there's no like impact because you've seen Logan, right?
Yes.
You know at the beginning where he's being beaten by like the carjackers,
Oh, yeah.
and like he like you feel like he slices that guy's arm off.
Yeah.
He like puts his claws in that guy's face, and you feel that, and it's like it's brutal. But here it's like I know, and there are some good kills in the Predator.
There are absolutely some good kills.
But it's like none of them feel, and I think there's like CGI blood too.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of that.
I mean, yeah, it's like 2010 Expendables.
Oh god, yeah, no, it's bad. Like the digital squibs in this movie are awful. Like really, really awful. Like honestly, like it's literally, I feel like I'm watching at one point, like I can hear Nick Mundy screaming in my ears, for any of you Screen Junkies fans out there, when he said like how to fix the Expendables and he's screaming get rid of digital squibs, and I'm like, yeah, because it looks awful. Like I'm watching the Mega Predator, for lack of a better word, stab some guy repeatedly like 30,000 times, and I'm seeing nothing but like digital blood go everywhere, and I'm like, I'm not invested at it in all because it looks off, because it looks so fake. I'm completely taken out of it. Like I am in no point in this movie invested because of how constantly jumpy it is. And like I said, you want to mix practical with CG. I mean, yeah, I am more power to you. Star Wars has done that for the most part really well. J.J. Abrams arguably more so than Rian Johnson, but like the scene where the Predator is facing the Mega Predator, and it's like, because the regular Predator, the regular size Predator is obviously like, that is very practical, and those practical effects are really good, I would say. And then you get the Mega Predator, and it's this big CGI mess, and like even though it's dark out, like it still stands out really apparently, and it looks awful, like just terrible. And like literally when I see the two of them, I'm like, I literally feel like I'm watching like a monster schlock fest. Like I take the fights in Godzilla more seriously, and Godzilla is all CG, and I take that more seriously.
Yeah, and definitely, and those like Predator hounds they got running around.
God.
It's like,
and then they turn that into like, oh, get it? You lobotomized him, so he's a helpless, dopey puppy now. See?
And there's this part where they like stick, I think it was like a grenade down one of them that's thrown, and it blows up. Like, wow, am I watching like a movie from like 2004?
Literally, that's what it felt like at points. I feel like I'm watching like a kids movie, that's trying to be. It's like one of those movies that's like, hey, I can be adult too, get it? And then like it's even though it is rated R, like I feel like I'm watching one of those movies that's like, wow, they wanted to make this PG-13 so badly, but Shane would not budge unless they made it an R. But it's one of those R movies that honestly probably would have been better off as a PG-13, because there are a lot of moments where this movie could have been like really cool, and it just wasn't. And are we talking spoilers? Do you want to talk spoilers at all?
Yeah, because I do. There are a couple scenes I think that were really cool.
Yeah,
I did like the scene where.
So just a fair warning for any of you who actually like did see this. This is the part where we do talk about spoilers. So
I really did as I said before, some of the kills were really cool. Like, or some of the deaths, I would say. One of them was one of the characters. They were on the spaceship, and the shield came on, and the guy gets his legs cut off.
Augustus, yeah, the Nettles character, yeah. Like, what I will say is that, again, a problem with pacing is that it becomes really, really obvious that, okay, all the big name actors, like nobody's gonna actually die until the third act, and that became really, really obvious. But once like they start to go, they go real quick.
Or
it's almost like an anti-Rogue One, where it's like they go so quick, but where the editing is so bad, and because you haven't been given like any time to really invest in these characters outside of like their one gimmick that they have each, where it's like, oh, Thomas Jane, he's got Tourette's, he's constantly twitching, and like he's supposed to be so crazy, even though like the only thing that I know about him is Tourette's, and he's apparently got this giant backstory with Keegan-Michael Key that's been explained away with one sentence, even though Keegan-Michael Key is just like screaming and making really terrible jokes. And Trevante Rhodes, he's just like the cool guy, you know, that like smokes a lot. And then like Alfie Allen, he's British apparently. Even though I thought they were gonna have him do an American accent, except he's got like so little screen time that like I can barely tell that like he's in the movie, to the point where when they finally kill him off, they're like, wow, we really have no idea what to do with this guy, so we're just gonna kill him off screen too, I would like to add. And then by the time the third act comes around, that's almost like when the movie was like, oh yeah, that's right, we are a Predator movie, right? Like these things hunt. So, you know, and it's almost like the studio forgot that they were doing that until like the last third of the movie. And that's, of course, when everyone starts to die. And that's when it like sort of starts to get interesting again, sort of. And I will say that a lot of people complain about the third act, but my thing is that for me, probably the third act, again, like Rogue One and a lot of others, is probably what saved the movie. The problem,
it picked up.
It did certainly pick up. The problem is that the character deaths, because again, that's when the main characters like really start like going out. But real quick, just to touch on, you know, our guy, Sterling K. Brown, for Chris Darden himself, again, knocked it out of the park in People vs. OJ, and he's just been popping up in things, you know, got another big TV role, and This Is Us, and this is kind of the year where he's starting to make his way into movies, where this is the third movie he's been in so far, I'm pretty sure, this year, after Black Panther and Hotel Artemis, and he's good in it. He honestly, I would probably say that after Trevante Rhodes, who was probably my favorite cast member in this movie, he was probably the second best, where every one of his lines, it's almost like kind of like he's self-aware of how bad the dialogue he's given is, so he kind of like tries to pull like a street thing on it, and he does a pretty good job for the most part, but his death, like, so just to give you guys an idea, so once the final act comes, the third act of this movie is literally the Mega Predator, like they find the Mega Predator ship, and they're trying to take a bunch of tech from it, and the Mega Predator goes into his ship, and is like, oh, I've enjoyed like watching you guys like kill each other, so now I'm gonna hunt you all. So now like the remaining like rogue government forces led by Boyd Holbrook and Sterling K. Brown, who's like the asshole government guy, they all team up and they're like, well, gotta go on the run now. And they do. And so Sterling K. Brown armors himself up with, like, you know, the Predator's shoulder thing, because the big thing in this movie, which I actually think is a cool new thing that they did in the Predator canon, I just wish it had been in a better movie, is that you actually get to see the humans armoring themselves up with Predator tech in order to take on the Predators. Which, again, that's a cool thing that like would be cool if it were done in a better movie.
Yeah, and also at the end where they kind of get like that anti-Predator armor, which I kind of wish they.
Well, no, that's what I'm gonna get to. That's what I'm gonna get to. So Sterling K. Brown, like, he's using this shoulder missile to try and kill the Predator, and then, like, again, it's because the editing is so bad in this scene. It's like a quick blink and you'll miss it, where I don't even know if the Predator shows up or not, and then he, like, quickly, like, Olivia Munn distracts him, he turns and fires, and he, like, blows himself up, and I'm like, what? Like, he's gone so quick. I'm like, what just happened? And then everybody's, like, running for the Predator again. I'm like, okay, I guess, like, he's dead now? Oh, well. And, like, everybody else, like, definitely gets a sufficient amount of time, then, like, after they, like, die, that they can actually, I will definitely say Thomas Jane's death, like, Thomas Jane went out in a pretty cool way, and then Keegan-Michael Key, like, their death, I will say, was pretty cool. Again, I wish the writing had been better enough to back up and justify it, because I was like, because when their deaths happen, and their deaths are probably the most brutal deaths in the entire movie. When their deaths happen, there's a little bit of practical stuff. Like, that's probably the only deaths in the movie where there's, like, actually some practical mixed with CG. Their deaths, again, it's really touching, it's really tender, it's really sweet. Like, I don't know. Do you want to, like, describe how these two die? Because I hit Sterling K. Brown, so I feel like you should be the one that describes this next scene.
I mean, these guys, like, Keegan gets, like, eviscerated.
Like, he gets, like, his entire guts ripped out. Like, he's literally holding his intestines in front. Like, it's grotesque to look at.
And then, was it Thomas Jane who played the guy with the tech?
Yeah, Thomas Jane is the guy.
He's like, up in the tree.
Yeah, like, so, like, basically what happened was they lit the Mega Predator was hunting them, and they lit the Mega Predator on fire, but it's, like, not dying. So Thomas Jane is like, you know, I'm gonna go self-sacrifice. He, like, jumps off the tree and is on the Predator trying to stab it. And, like, again, the editing in this movie is, like, to a new level of bad that I have not seen before, where literally, like, he throws him and he impales him against the tree, and there's a whole bunch of, like, digital blood, and it looks so fake. Poor Thomas Jane is trying his hardest to look like he's, like, in physical pain, but, like, it's so obvious that he's just hanging there. And then, like, Keegan-Michael Key gets eviscerated, and they're sitting there, and the Predator, like, runs off, and they're just chilling there. They're like, yeah. And then they like, hold up their guns to each other, because apparently they had an off-screen suicide pact thing going, and they shoot each other both dead. I'm like, what? Like, what did I just see? Like, there should be, like, so much emotional heart that you should feel for these two as they die. And I'm just like...
But no, we had to save time for the quips.
Yeah, exactly. We had to save time for the quips. Like, the crazy quips. Just like, oh, what are you doing? You know, oh.
Like, and also there's this one scene, this is earlier in the movie, but I don't know, I kind of felt that this was, like, out of character for, like, a character for, like, a Predator, like, creature. But remember the part where, the Predator, he gets in the back of, like, the military vehicle, he, like, slaughters everybody in the back.
Yeah.
And then he takes a hand and he puts it, like, a
yeah, like, the Predator was straight up messing with people. He was straight up messing with people. They sort of explained away why that Predator was doing that. I'm talking about the Mega Predator, which still acts like, you know, like a traditional Predator. But, like, they had all this stuff about hybrid stuff. I'm like, okay, I'm like, is this movie like Alien versus Predator? Like, I really thought, like, I really thought that, like, this movie was, like, Alien vs. Predator, except, you know, Alien vs. Predator was probably better than this movie, because at the very least, that movie had sort of a consistent tone to it. Like, Jesus Christ.
Also, here's something I want to ask you. Do you think Olivia Munn was miscast in this movie?
I don't think she was miscast per se. I just think that from everything I've seen her in, like, there are just some actors who just blockbuster movies just don't know what to do with them in general. And Olivia Munn is one of them, where they see her and they're like, oh my god, this chick is gorgeous. How do we put her in these movies, but like try and give her like a role that's like actually fits her? And they always reduce her to like the smart genius thing that always has the last minute solutions, and it just gets annoying after a while. Like, she's playing the tech genius at Office Christmas Party. She's playing another scientist in this, and she's definitely playing it better than, say, Denise Richards in not Die Another Day. The World Is Not Enough as a nuclear physicist,
or any of the hot scientists in like the Transformers.
Oh
movies.
god, like those are those people even actresses? Like, they're mostly Rosie Huntington-Whiteley is a model, so like.
You know Michael Bay.
Yeah, I know Michael Bay, but we're not here to talk about Michael Bay. Thank God he's actually not on the...
That's a rant for another podcast.
That's a rant for another podcast. So, basically... Oh, man, and then what else? And then, of course, we get to the ship where it's about to be the final showdown with the Predator, but they're like, oh, damn, we still have, like, 3 other people. You know, Alfie Allen's gone, Thomas Jane is gone, Keegan-Michael Key is gone, but we still have 2 more people that need to be killed. And they're like, oh, we still got Trevante Rhodes and the other guy, the Spanish guy. I think the actor's name is Augusto Aguilaro, who, like, literally his thing is, I'm just going to act weird. Like, that's literally his entire character trait, is I'm just going to act weird. Which, again, I've seen movies where, like, you have this, like, hardcore band of brothers going up against something, and I really thought that with Shane Black, like, he would really make that work, but, again, like, it's just a bunch of, like, one-note characteristic traits, and I gotta say, I'm really disappointed with how they handled that. That is probably the most disappointing part of that movie. Is, again, I wouldn't say the actors are miscast, because I know that they're all very talented actors, but
is that the script they have is not that good.
The script they have is not good. Like, these are not well written, fleshed out characters. And also doesn't help with the fact that they cut their screen time in order to make room for this freaking subplot with this kid with Jacob Tremblay, where apparently it's another one of the situations where Asperger's equals super genius, and then they're trying. So much to the point where they literally actually bring that up as a clip in the movie, where Olivia Munn has the gall to say, oh, you know that some people say that, you know, autism is the next stage in evolution. I'm like, oh my god, what is this? Oh my god, Fox, stop, we get it. You're making X-Men movies, like, what? Like,
so yeah, definitely Shane Black's worst movie.
Oh, easily. Like,
if you thought Iron
Man 3 was bad. Oh my god, Iron Man 3 is freaking like the best movie ever compared to this movie. Well, again,
I think Iron Man 3 is
underrated. Yeah, exactly. The thing that I go with Iron Man 3, Iron Man 3 is not a bad movie. I just don't like that movie as a Marvel movie. I think that movie taken out and on its own is actually really good, but I just think the trajectory of the plot and the villain is just not good at all. It definitely takes a lot of interesting twists and turns. My biggest problem with that movie is the villain. Not with the Mandarin twist, it's mostly with Guy Pearce and his handling of his character.
And in all honesty, I would watch Predators over.
Oh yeah, easily. Well, because Predators is basically the first film that actually tries to change it up, where it's like finally. Well, and again, that's probably why I like the third act of this movie so much, because the third act of this movie literally becomes Predators the entire movie.
Yeah.
And arguably, I would say the Predators did it better and had a better cast, because like that kind of had like a lot of, again, kooky, weird choices for cast. Like Adrian Brody is the lead, Mahershala Ali is in that movie, Danny Trejo, Walton Goggins is in that movie, Topher Grace and Lawrence Fishburne. Like,
I think that cast was more. I think the characters in that movie were more memorable than the characters in that.
Easily. Like, who knew that Robert Rodriguez would be able to produce a movie, a better Predator movie than Shane Black directing and writing would? Like, good God, Shane. Another director that 2018 just completely ruined for us.
Okay, well, want to move on to a lighter note?
Yeah, let's move on to a lighter note. A Simple Favor, a super dark black comedy satire from Paul Feig, the director of Spy and Ghostbusters. Now, I remember watching the trailer for this, and probably the way that I feel about the Predator movie is how I felt about this trailer, where I'm like, what is this movie? Like, I had no idea what this movie was going to be going in, and I have to say, after watching it, I very thoroughly enjoyed this movie.
Would you say it's Paul Feig's best movie?
From the ones that I've seen, yeah, because the problem is I have only seen about half of Paul Feig's filmography, so if I'm not mistaken, you might want to Google me on this, but Paul Feig has only directed 6 movies now, with this film, A Simple Favor, being his 6th film, following up Unaccompanied Minors, Bridesmaids, The Heat, Spy, and Ghostbusters. And what I will say is that
there's also I Am David from 2003.
I Am David. Ooh, let me Google that one. I haven't heard of that one.
Oh, with Jim Caviezel.
Ooh, yeah.
Jesus Christ himself.
Jesus Christ himself. I Am David, which is a 2003 film directed by Paul Feig. Wow. Okay then. I've never heard his directorial debut. That is, what is this movie? It's about a 12-year-old boy who escapes a labor camp in Bulgaria.
Sounds like a different
What?
from the Paul Feig movies we have nowadays.
Oh my god! Like, what is this movie? From I Am David to Unaccompanied Minors to Bride. What? Okay, well, thank you for bringing that to my attention because I need to do some more work on that. But anyway, so the point being, so this movie is a simple favor. Long story short, this film, besides being way better than the trailers pitched, is, in a nutshell, is basically like Gone Girl, only if Gone Girl were a self-aware satire, for lack of a better word. Like, Gone Girl itself is very self-aware of what it is, but the difference being Gone Girl is definitely played for obviously more dark and messed up
I would say Gone Girl is more of like a commentary about like how like the media kind of like handles like, you know, like those sort of like, you know, like the Casey Anthony, the Scott Peterson sort of
right
thing.
and this film is definitely focusing much more so on the mystery element of it, where in Gone Girl the mystery element is only for a little bit of it before you figure out, because the interesting thing is that Gone Girl plays around with perspective a lot versus this film is primarily much more traditional and really only focuses on one point of view, for lack of a better word, because that's just what Fincher likes to do, because Fincher likes to play around with the screenplay and screenwriting and story beats and formatting, which is again one of the reasons why he is one of the few auteurs we have left. But Paul Feig with this movie, I'm really interested with the choices that he takes. He takes a lot of risks with this movie. What's it called? He does a lot of subtle touches with character. Like, you want to talk about subtlety in a movie that was basically pitched as like the next like white, like as basically like a soap opera for the big screen. Like, there are so many subtle things done with, specifically with Anna Kendrick. Like, she actually like does a surprisingly good job. Like, I was really worried in the trailer that she was gonna go back on her, like, I'm a manic pixie dream girl, and she doesn't. Like, she's actually, her character has a lot of subtle dark secrets that slowly get revealed. Like, it's not like a quick big exposition dump all at the beginning, which I really appreciate. It's told, the story really flows naturally and it comes out in increments throughout. Like, she has this mommy vlog that she does throughout, and it actually like does a really good job in terms of the film. It's almost like, arguably, I would say it's a very similar storytelling technique that 8th Grade did. And A Simple Favor, I would say, does it better. Good movie.
Oh yeah, I'm almost done with the first half of the 6th season of Sopranos.
Oh,
I'm on the last step. I'm the last episode.
You know that for next semester, I'm gonna want to do a thing on the 20-year anniversary of the first season of The Sopranos, right? That's how I'm gonna bring it back. All right, so that'll be our time code of when to come back in, and we're back. And so, A Simple Favor, just kind of to close off, great performances, surprisingly, from both Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively, who's somebody that I've never really taken that big an interest in. I always thought that she was kind of flat and dull and bland as a performer, but as kind of like the Rosamund Pike-esque character of this movie, she gives probably like, she just has all those lines that we all want to hear, because she's one of those characters in fiction that says all the things that we think, and she does it really well too. That's surprising. Like, she has a flat delivery, but it works for her character. And also, shout out to Henry Golding too, who's continuing to prove that like he is basically the Asian James Bond. And honestly, I'm really wondering if after Crazy Rich Asians and now this, if what's the studio behind James Bond? MGM, I think, is it?
I think also maybe Sony has.
Yeah, maybe Sony, but Sony might be looking his way and just be like, hey, Henry Golding, you're hot right now, right? Come on over here. Talk about a little role here that might make you a lot of money going forward. So, yeah, can't believe I'm saying this, but on a weekend where there's a Paul Feig movie and a Shane Black movie that came out, I highly recommend going to see the Paul Feig movie. And with that, we have now officially entered the Twilight Zone. But then again, I'm also pretty sure that the year of 2018 has fully immerse us in that. So that's basically it for the review section, unless you saw anything else new this weekend in terms of movies or TV shows too, because we also like can review like just a quick thing on TV shows right here, because I know the new seasons of American Vandal and BoJack Horseman both dropped on Netflix yesterday. You've also had the new season of American Horror Story Apocalypse that dropped on Wednesday this week. I have not gotten a chance to watch that episode yet, but I do still plan on watching it because I do still have an inkling of hope left for American Horror Story, even though this most recent season, Cult, was quite possibly one of the most garbage things I've ever seen. And one of my favorite HBO shows, new HBO shows that I should say, The Deuce, from the creator of The Wire, David Simon. Its second season premiered this past Sunday. And of course, you also have Ozark, which closed off the summer for TV. Ozark season 2, which is another surprise from last year that proved to be actually really good. So anything there, ring your bell, tug your whistle, anything like that?
Usually with TV shows, well, in the past, mainly, I've kind of waited till they wrapped up so I can, watch everything at my own pace. But I have been watching the new Matt Groening show, Disenchantment.
Yeah, that. How is that? Because I only got a chance to watch 2 episodes of it.
It's okay. It's nothing, because I hold something like The Simpsons and Futurama to a really high standard because I really love those shows. I mean, Simpsons by themselves, how much they changed the world of animation, but also adult animation. All the adult animated shows owe something to The Simpsons. Kind of how The Simpsons owned themselves, the Flintstones and stuff like that. But so I watch Disenchantment. Some of the humor, it works, but other times I kind of find it some of it's kind of bland and tired. But who knows? I've only seen 4 episodes, so I'm hoping it improves.
Yeah, my biggest thing that I took away from the 2 episodes that I saw is I really like the voiceover. I really like the main trio. I think that the teaming up of Abby Jacobson, Nat Faxon, and Eric Andre, whoever came up with that. I mean, putting Eric Andre in anything is basically putting that little touch of gold in it. But I think his role is really subtle and soft, and I really, really appreciate that he's not going really loud and obnoxious and over the top the way that he usually does in his show, which usually works for his show because that's the type of tone that it goes for. But I really appreciate that for this tone. It's mostly they're the only kind of real characters in this nutty bonkers world. I think that tone mesh and style meshes really well, and I think the 3 of them do a good enough job adding legitimacy to those roles that it helps sell those characters and make them even more relatable. So I'm a big fan of the voiceover, and I will definitely be getting back to Disenchantment sometime soon. I have 8 episodes of that left, and then I have 3 episodes left of Ozark season 2, and then I'm planning on starting American Vandal and BoJack once I finish with those 2. So nice quick TV section to talk about, but I have a feeling we'll have a little bit more to talk about that once we get to the next episode, only because there's a little award ceremony that's coming up on Monday to go over all of TV. Yeah, and I don't know how invested you are with the Emmys as much as you are with the Oscars, but there's definitely a couple stuff we could talk about with this year's Emmy ceremony.
I always try to get invested in the Emmys. Problem is that I'm not really for TV. It's really because there's so much TV to watch nowadays, and it's great because there's a lot of variety. But it's the market is just so flooded with all this great stuff. It's I'm trying to there's I'm watching Sopranos right now, but there's a lot of back catalog stuff too that I want to get through.
Yeah, a lot of back catalog stuff, and I tried to do it all at once, and man, that did not work for me at all. But speaking of which, just to throw it back your way, Garrick, for Sopranos. So you said you're on which part of the show right now?
I'm on the first half of season 6. I'm almost done. I have 1 episode left. I think the episode's called Keisha or
Keisha. Yeah, and you'll understand why the episode is called that. But so the whole Vito thing. So that went. That went pretty much exactly the way you were expecting it to, only with the person who ended up killing him. For anybody who's watched The Sopranos right now, you should know exactly what we're talking about.
It's I kind of knew the Vito character's one guy. It's kind of like the Ralph Cifaretto character.
Yeah, it's one of those characters that once they set you up on the difference being though that with Ralph was kind of a guy you could tell that we're gonna build up to that character dying the minute that they brought him on screen, versus with Vito had kind of been around kind of in the back scenes, and then he slowly got boosted up to kind of take a main part in this season. But again, once they announced it, it's you kind of knew that he was gonna die. So
yeah, and honestly, you kind of feel bad for the guy because this, I mean, of course, nowadays, we have entire LBGTQ.
Yeah, or as my friend calls it, LGBTQ XYWZ something. There's so many letters. There's a different letter invented each week. It's a lot to keep track of.
But it's also kind of thing because people are always talking about how people are becoming more inclusive and all that. But of course, when you're with organized crime, the mob, they don't. Yeah, really...
it's a very one-track mindset, for lack of a better word.
Because a lot of those guys they're more traditional. I would say. I don't think there was any way Vito could have come back from that.
No. Definitely
especially not. Also how he kind of left his family and
yeah no he definitely wasn't any spring chicken either, but he was flawed just like every other character. But what I will say though, and again this just shows the brilliance of that show, is that it shows that even though they all agree he had to go because he chose a lifestyle that was clearly very different from their very traditional, very old style thinking one. They still like they still like kind of missed the guy, you know, because he was Tony even said like he was a very, very good earner. They all for the most part liked him as a person, and again, it's gonna have repercussions. What happens with Vito ends up still having repercussions on both them, their personal relationships, and their relationships with New York. So
yeah, but also one character, I gotta say this, I hate the AJ character.
Yeah,
because I know I get it. He's supposed to be like this, like he's a teenager or like a young adult, and he's like he doesn't want to like listen to his parents and stuff. But it gets too much.
Yeah, it gets
sometimes.
to the point where it's like, okay, like, why are we even still spending any time? It gets to the point which I don't like that most movies and TV shows get to, where it ends up making me wonder why I'm still watching it. And I hate movies and TV shows that do that make me question why I even bothered to watch it, because it just has subject matter in it that feels like it is repeating itself just for the sake of repeating itself, or like constantly shoving in my face, you're an idiot for watching this, and you should feel stupid for that, and I hate stuff that makes me feel that way. And that's kind of exactly what I feel like happened whenever I was watching AJ on screen. Like, it's bearable at first, you know, because he's like 12, 13 when the series first starts. But once the show ends and he's like 20, 21 years old, I'm like, oh my God,
yeah, and honestly, you're like, just listen, get your life back on track. Like, you can't like stay in your parents' like house forever, and like he's also kind of a bitch too.
Yeah, he is. He really is. Like, he doesn't take any responsibility. He's scared of everything. He acts all tough, but he doesn't actually take part in it. Like, you'll see, there's a scene in part 2 of the series where like there's a scene where him and a couple of friends end up beating up this Nigerian kid, and he does like nothing, and he doesn't even know how to react to it. And it's like damn. Like, I have a feeling that David Chase just had no idea what to do with that character.
At least with like the Meadow Soprano character, it's Jamie Lynn Sigler.
It's Jamie Lynn Sigler. So at the very least, like, they do something with that character, though, you know? Like, and even though like she has like a lesser part going forward, she's still like, they do something with her. Like, they show her growth and maturity as a person. So, and oh man, I mean, come on. Like,
come on.
Come on.
It's Meadow Soprano.
25, 26-year-old Jamie Lynn Sigler. Good God. Like,
especially the beginning of season 6, that little montage.
Oh
you
my.
know what I'm talking
I
about?
know exactly what you're talking about. Like, Anyways, but we're not taking the time about that. So, kind of just to wrap.
That's for
the
After Dark podcast.
That's a discussion for a whole other day. So, basically, to kind of wrap this first episode up. So, we talked about news, we talked a little bit about movies and TV shows, but we're gonna get back to something that I have not done in quite a while that I would like to get back to. I'm probably gonna end up focusing more on these here than I will on my YouTube channel, and that is top 10 lists, where I love doing top 10 lists. That's kind of like what started with me on YouTube was I started watching Watch Mojo and their top 10 lists. So I have for right here, I have 2 lists that I'm going to go through with you, Garrick. And I'm also going to want yours as well, which is, so I have my top 10 favorite movies that I'm looking forward to for the rest of the year, because we still have a lot of movies to look forward to. You know, TIFF just rolled around. We are pretty much about to get into Oscar season. I would say like give it 1 or 2 more weeks before we start seeing like a lot of speculation, a lot of tabloid articles, a lot of advertisement. You know, a lot of for your consideration start to get posted. And then also, I want to do a top 10 list, just so you know, just a quick rundown of our favorite movies of the summer, because I wanted to talk a little bit more about the summer and everything that happened there, but unfortunately, just with how the timing worked out, that was unfortunately not possible. Oh, wow, you're actually not going to be happy about this. Happy Time Murders, even though I moved it around a little bit, Happy Time Murders actually moved around. It was almost at my number 11 spot for top 10 favorite movies this summer. Yeah. So, let me just find this. And it's a little bit tricky because there's a movie. Actually, you know what? I might be able to count this because there's a movie on here that I actually saw and was an advanced screening before it was even officially released. And so I don't know if I should count this movie because the movie's official release is October, even though I saw it like months before it even premiered at TIFF. I'll explain why once we get to it. So, kind of starting off with mine favorite movies that I saw this summer. How do you want to do this? So you want to roll it like I'll do my 10 through 6, then you do your 10 through 6, and then
we can do something like that.
Yeah, something like that. So basically, kind of to kick mine off, this summer was a really weird one because there are a lot of movies on here that again I'm constantly shifting around, changing my mind on, but to start off with, so my number 10 is actually Teen Titans Go to the Movies, which again was a movie that thoroughly shocked me because again, looking into this movie, I really thought that it was going to be another situation where, okay, I just watched this out of obligation to, because again, I love these characters and I love the Teen Titans original show, even though the Teen Titans Go show is basically like the equivalent of AIDS to me. But I went in and I watched the movie and I'm like, oh, wait, they're doing it self-referential. I get it. And even to the point where I would say that, like, it's really kind of odd. Like, Nostalgia Critic actually brought up a good point with this, which is where Teen Titans Go, the series, is almost self-aware of how much hate it gets from diehard Teen Titans fans. So it's almost like it goes out of its way to make fun of itself and be self-deprecating to like a whole new level that I have never seen before. And I kind of got that sense from this movie, where the entire point of this movie is they just want a movie made about them, and it's like the levels and depths that Robin is, and of ridiculousness that Robin is willing to go to, and how they end up facing Deathstroke. And Deathstroke's plan is actually kind of hilarious and actually kind of ingenious too, if you think about it. It's almost like capitalizing on the sort of unintentional genius that came out of the Riddler's plan of Batman Forever, which if you want to understand what I'm talking about, go watch that movie. But yeah, I ended up enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would. Got a lot of unintentional laughs, particularly with the Michael Bolton bear. If you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And yeah, it was hilarious, and I got a lot more unintentional laughs out of it than I realized. So then moving on, my number 9 is American Animals, which, did you watch this movie?
No.
So this film was another interesting one. Another thing about this summer is there were a lot of directorial debuts, and this movie was not exactly a directorial debut because this director, Bart Layton, directed I think a couple of short films before this. So the interesting thing about this film is that it was another one of those true crime stories that followed a bunch of teenagers that were trying to, commit a robbery or whatever. The interesting thing is that it bounced back and forth between the actors playing the fictionalized versions of these characters portrayed by Evan Peters, Barry Keoghan, Jared Abramson, and Blake Jenner, and the actual real people who they had in the movie. So it almost gave it like this pseudo-documentary feel to it, almost like American Vandal. The problem is that the pacing, I think, in this movie could have been a little bit better. I definitely think that the subject matter could have lent itself toward, the movie definitely knew what it was trying to do in terms of what it was trying to say about heists and what we see in movies versus what we actually get in reality, because there's actually this really clever sequence in the movie where they end up doing this whole Soderbergh-esque thing on the way they see it in their heads. They're all smooth, they taser and they catch her and they've got they're all in suits and everything. And then of course the actual heist goes completely and miserably wrong. My biggest problem though with this movie is that after I watched it, it's one of those movies that had me wondering, why did I watch it? Because the way that it turns out, they even make it seem like, yeah, these kids, they had the movie almost makes you wonder if they even knew what they were doing, which would have been good if they hadn't tried to make them so self-aware and so in their own worlds and important. If they had tried to show the insecurities that they had a little bit more, because the problem is the insecurities that they had towards the heist really didn't play in until the end. And I definitely think that comes a lot from the Barry Keoghan character, only because I just think that Barry Keoghan is not as good an actor as everybody makes him out to be. And I definitely feel like there's a lot more emotion that he could put into his roles that is very much missing. So that's American Animals. Then my number 8 is a film that shocked me. Again, I'm not counting Simple Favor because Simple Favor was September, but it's a film that shocked me completely, and that was Blumhouse's Upgrade.
Really?
Another film that I was not expecting at all anything from. I watched the trailer. The trailer was pretty cool, had some cool action in it, and then I watched the movie, and the movie was oh wow. It was almost for lack of a better word, a Black Mirror episode put up on the big screen. And it was surprisingly well written, well directed, well acted, again, competently made, especially by Blumhouse. It was kind of following up on their track record from last year after the disappointment that they had earlier this year with Truth or Dare. The ending, for me, is still one of the best endings that I've seen all year, because the ending, again, it's a Black Mirror episode where it kind of plays out on a twist where the entire movie has, about halfway through the movie, it's pretty obvious what's going on, who the bad guy is, what's causing everything, and what caused his wife to be killed and everything. But then there's this twist that comes along where it actually isn't that, and it's something else that comes out from a totally new direction that you weren't expecting at all. And it really gives the film a really satisfying, messed up ending, and a lot of action, a lot of fun. I would definitely recommend that. And then my 7 is Mission Impossible Fallout, which, unfortunately enough, the discussion there is mostly to be done with the Henry Cavill mustache debacle, and then my number 6 is Tully. So before I talk about any one of those movies, I kind of want to hear what your 10 through 6 is from the summer so far.
I just like to preface, I didn't see as many movies as Dom did because I mostly focus on like the heavy hitters. Sometimes I don't really want to waste my like time and money on some of the other like Drek that's out there. So usually, and also I was also transitioning from MoviePass to my new subscription service, so that took a while to get.
Yeah, I'm sure
to get through. So this is mostly going to be a list that's kind of like by default. So some of these movies I don't really see myself watching ever again, but they are, what they are. So at number 10, I'm going to have to put Ocean's 8. Because, okay, so even though I'm getting really tired of this trend of, let's just remake the movie, but let's put females in the lead roles.
because that'll sell tickets.
Yeah, because they did it with Ghostbusters. They did it here. They're going to do it with that new... What Women Want, that movie that's coming out?
Yeah, that movie that looks that trailer bad.
I mean, what's coming out next? Like, we're gonna remake Saving Private Ryan.
Oh God, don't say it. Don't. If you say it, it might happen. So.
I've heard they also tried to do like an Expendables movie, but with all females.
Oh yeah, but that got scrapped real quick. So Ocean's 8, any redeeming qualities there?
I thought it was a decent heist movie because a lot of people were like, they're just trying to pander to like the the social justice warrior crowd. But I thought it was even though it's kind of like a remake of just the first Ocean's 11, I thought it was a decent heist because if you're looking for a good heist movie, you should definitely look there. So that's my number 10. Number 9 is probably gonna go to Tag. I thought Tag was a decent little comedy because I just liked how, like the Jeremy Renner character, how seriously he took this game and how he would like.
That's just him. How everybody in that movie took that game.
Yeah, this guy would literally make like a reconstruction of his house in his basement or something.
Oh no, he made a reconstruction of his room in his oh my God, I love that. See, I'll get to that in a little bit when I get to mine. But
number 7, I'm just
number 8. Number 9 you said was Tag. So
okay,
you're on
number 8 is gonna have to go to Solo, A Star Wars Story. Ugh. I mean, this is a movie. I don't think anyone really wanted a standalone Solo movie, and
no one did.
And of course, the movie bombed. And this is more of like a discussion for another day about the state of like Star Wars. And how it
that's
should be handled.
definitely a discussion for another day.
I went in with kind of like low expectations. And I kind of was surprised. I thought like Alden Ehrenreich was a decent Solo. I thought some of the ideas in the movie were all right. I thought I'm gonna get in spoilers here, but if you wanted to see Solo, you probably would have seen Solo by now. But I thought the Darth Maul cameo was interesting, even though I don't think they're really gonna
deliver on that
because I don't. Do you think they're ever gonna make
I honestly have no idea like what's gonna happen there because they don't even know what's gonna happen there. Honestly, they're like one step above Warner Brothers in terms of how much they know what they're doing. Lucasfilm, yeah.
So yeah, but I thought it was a decent film. So number 7, am I on number 7?
Yeah, you are on number 7 now.
Okay, number 7. I'm probably gonna put. I'll put Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom at number 7.
Oh, good God! That. Oh my God!
Even though in a sense it is kind of a disappointing movie, I do think definitely more suspense in this movie than The Predator. I'll give it that. Yeah,
but I still think Predator was still more competently made because The Predator at the very least had some good parts versus Jurassic World made me want to fall asleep and vomit simultaneously throughout most of it.
And also if you watch the movie, there's really no character development for like the Chris Pratt character or the Bryce Dallas Howard character.
There's no character development at all, just in general in this movie.
No. Plus, there's like this, like they kind of do this little subplot thing where there's human cloning in this movie, if you remember.
Yeah, like and there's no reason for that subplot other than to justify the ending, which literally, I said this in my review, and I'm gonna say it again. I am still of the opinion that Colin Trevorrow and Derek Connolly came up with this ending first, and then wrote the movie to build up specifically to that. Like except they're so uncreative with their abilities that they just ripped off the Lost World. They're like, okay, what if we did the Lost World, but where the T-Rex gets loose on the world? Only this time we're gonna do it with all the dinosaurs. And in order to justify it, we're gonna come up with an arc about human cloning. Yeah, that'll qualify for Best Popular Film at the Oscars.
Yeah. Okay. And number 6 for me is going to be Ant-Man and the Wasp. I thought, because I really like the first Ant-Man. I think it's a great, even though I really would have liked to see what Edgar Wright would have brought to the table, I thought You know, a lot of jokes I thought were funny. They brought all the characters were there. It's kind of like irrelevant, sort of the grand scheme of things of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I really love the tie into Infinity War at like the post credit scene.
Yeah.
Well, it was the mid credit scene. The post credit scene was
Post-credit scene is like, you can skip that.
Yeah, some great action, some great comedy too. Because I like the part where Paul Rudd he shrinks down, but he's like the size of like a third grader or something. And he's walking around, and Michael Douglas is like, "Oh, do you want like a juice box?"
And how about the part where where he literally has to mimic Michelle Pfeiffer for a little bit of it, and the way that he's interacting with Michael Douglas and Evangeline Lilly, that was kind of great. Just like a really great use of his range, and also. Probably my favorite part of that entire movie. It's one of the only parts that I actually remember from it. Is where they're sitting down and they're being captured. The bad guys are explaining their plot to them, and I'm getting a lot of elements of Phase 2 from that movie. And then they mentioned quantum something again, and then Paul Rudd just brings it. I feel like you guys just like put quantum in front of everything. That's one of the funniest lines in the entire movie. I'm like, okay, that has to be improvised. There's no way they were smart enough to come up with that, to put that in the script. So that was that. Yeah. So that movie gave me a few chuckles.
Okay, so what's your top 5 of the year?
So now we get to top of the summer, not of the year.
Okay,
so,
of the summer.
Of the summer. So, like I said, my number 7 is for Mission Impossible Fallout and Tully, and I just wanted to give a brief shout out to Tully. It's not as bad as everybody says it is. Yeah, a lot of people get turned off by that ending, and I understand why, but for me at least, it worked, and I've explained why in my review. So my number 5 is Flower, a film that premiered at Tribeca Film Festival last year, starring Zoe Deutsch, who is actually, I found out the reason why she looks so familiar is because Zoe Deutsch is actually Leah Thompson's daughter.
Really?
Yeah, Leah Thompson from Back to the Future fame. Good little film. Ending is definitely like really, really confusing tonally, but for me it worked because they do kind of like explain away a little bit why their actions that they do in the film are justified. But really good film, really engaging film, really good acting all around the board, not just from Zoe Deutsch, but from the rest of the cast. Joey Morgan, Adam Scott, Tim Heidecker, Katherine Hahn, and the 2 girls that play her friends. I can't remember those actresses' names, but really good stuff there. So that's number 5, Flower. Number 4 is Tag. Probably one of the funniest, best theater-going experiences I've ever had. I love how, again, you were talking about how seriously Jeremy Renner takes that game. How about the fact that everybody in that film takes that game so seriously? And I love the different personalities they got back and forth. Again, it's not the best use of acting, but I love how, like, the film just took the premise and just fully embraced the ridiculousness of it. Again, it's kind of like the opposite of American Animals, where American Animals was, like, constantly interspersing the real-life events with the actual events of the film, versus this film, I think, arguably did it better, where they're like, okay, so we're just going to take the premise and then we're just going to run with it and have fun with it. And at the end, they like sort of had a thing just like, oh yeah, this was sort of based on a true story. But this one is like, they're definitely playing it up, the over-the-topness of it. And I just loved that. I specifically loved Jake Johnson and Hannibal Buress. I thought those two stole every single scene they were in. Specifically, I think my favorite back and forth line from Hannibal Buress is when John Hamm pulls up in the van and he was like making up some story because he was seeing Rashida Jones, which was like the only pointless part of that movie, but like I still wouldn't cut it out. And he's just like, oh, I had some business to do with like some other Chinese people, like with Chinese business associates. And Hannibal Buress is like, that means it's 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning in China. You were doing business on 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning. He's like, yeah, how do you know so much about time zones? And then Hannibal Buress is just like, my boy Michael, 08 Olympics, my boy Michael Phelps. And so that was really funny. I like that. And then after Tag, it would probably have to be 8th Grade is my number 3. Really great, really sweet, really heartwarming film, but it's also gross and disgusting in all the best ways possible. Basically, for every person that absolutely despised being in 8th grade and just wish they could be anywhere else, this is the movie for you. Another directorial debut from Bo Burnham, and I would, for the most part, does a really good job directing-wise. There's a couple scenes in this movie that feel a little bit out of place tonally-wise, but for the most part, I still had a really good time with it. And then my top 2, if I'm not counting the film that I saw an advanced screening of, my number 2 is Deadpool 2, and my number 1 is Black Klansman. All like really, really, both really, really good in their own rights. But so I'm just gonna skip those because I've already talked about those enough. And one of them I will talk about in an upcoming video. But so Garrick, what are your top 2? And then we'll do a little bit of speculation for movies that are coming out, and then we'll get out of here.
Okay, so my top 2 films.
Top 5.
Okay, top 5. Okay. So number 5, I'm gonna put Black Klansman. This is a very like poignant movie. Poignant. Yeah. Okay. Because of course, I don't want to turn this into an entire like political like debate, but this movie kind of like makes you look at the way things are in the United States in regards to both race relations and stuff like that. It kind of like takes you back, and especially of course, great performances by what's his name?
John David Washington.
Yeah, the son of Denzel Washington.
Yes, yep, Denzel's son.
Adam Driver, of course, and also the Topher Grace.
Topher Grace as David Duke.
And I just love that little there was this part of the movie where Ron Stallworth he's the one who has to he's like the bodyguard, I guess.
When he protects David Duke.
And actually reminded me of this photo I saw of last year at the Charlottesville protest about the cop who's he's standing there and behind him there's these KKK members and it's because it's his job he has to he's a police officer, he has to be there and you make these connections, and of course, the ending of the movie, it kind of reminds me, this stuff still happens today.
Right. And what I will say, though, is that while the ending of the movie is a little bit on the nose, it kind of takes away from the point because, again, it's shoving down your throat, which is what Spike Lee does. It still doesn't take away from my actual enjoyment of the film, and the film is definitely one of the best and most poignant films of the year.
Do you think this movie will get Oscar nods?
I hope so. I really hope so. I think it coming out in August was a really good decision, and because there are a couple of late August movies that can sometimes stay in the conversation, and I think this film will be pointed out. Like I said, it's all going to depend on the other big, for lack of a better word, race movie, which definitely looks a lot more artsy, for lack of a word, which is Barry Jenkins If Beale Street Could Talk. But from everything that I've heard, the only thing that's really going to get talked about in that movie is Brian Tyree Henry's performance, versus I think BlacKkKlansman will be a lot more poignant. And BlacKkKlansman, I could definitely see, of all of the late summer movies, could get an Oscar nomination, very much so.
Okay, number 4, I'm going to put my number 4 at Incredibles 2.
Okay.
Because, of course, this is a movie sequel people have been asking for this movie for a long time. Oh, yeah, we got 3 Cars movies, we got planes, we got trains, we got automobiles. Come on, Pixar, give us
give us a sequel that we actually want.
Yeah, and so I went to the theater and I was pleasantly surprised. I thought having the movie take place right after the end of the first movie was an interesting choice, and I thought it was I don't think it's as good as the first Incredibles. I think the villain was kind of weak compared to because the first. Because the villain in the first Incredibles, what his motive was, and where he was coming from. But in the second one, it felt the villain kind of felt confused. I thought the motivations was confused. Once you figure out what the villain is trying to do, you kind of know who it is. It's the twist doesn't really have the impact. But other than that, I thought everything in this movie was hitting bullseye. And of course, it made $1 billion. So I do think we will see an Incredibles 3.
Yeah, me too, definitely. It's just with me with Incredibles 2. The film just didn't do for me what I thought it would. But that's just because I've explained this. Pixar just these days is starting to become a little bit lackluster for me. And I just don't think that they just have the same type of spirit that I say. The thing that I keep harkening back to is the Pixar of the 2000s. I feel like a bunch of indie movies that are released and mass marketed to kids, which is what I love about them. Versus this new batch, they feel a lot more mainstream, they feel a lot more poppy, they feel a lot more in your face, there's a lot more yelling. The characters don't feel as legitimate and real as I would want them to. It's like you were saying before about The Simpsons, with Brad Bird and adult animation, and this one just felt like it took a lot of steps back to a certain point where I felt like I wasn't even watching a Brad Bird movie.
Mm-hmm. And so, what would you say was the last Pixar movie that gave you that feeling?
Inside Out. Easily Inside Out. And I have not felt that way with a Pixar movie since then.
Not Cars 2?
No, definitely not Cars 2.
Brave?
Nope, definitely not Brave. Monsters University and Finding Dory came close. Those two movies came really close, but there was just something missing from those movies. I don't know what it was, but...
Maybe because I have a lot of nostalgia for Finding Nemo. But...
Yeah, and that definitely has a lot to do with it, but for example, Coco. Coco was a movie that I just did nothing for me. I was not a fan of Coco at all.
Really?
Yes, but... Again, that is an opinion that I've already made very, very clear. So
are we on number 3?
Yes, we are now on number 3.
Okay, number 3, I'm probably going to have to go with Mission Impossible Fallout.
Okay.
Because, the Mission Impossible franchise, this is a series that, has been going around since the mid-90s. And I think they just gotten better and better and better because, Mission Impossible, I thought the first Mission Impossible was kind of forgettable.
First Mission Impossible is okay. It's Brian De Palma. He does really well with the mystery elements of it, but the action elements, again, it's called Mission Impossible. It's not supposed to be a mystery noir film. It's supposed to be an action film. So I definitely think that's where Brian De Palma fell. And then just had the John Woo... that was with Mission Impossible 2.
Yeah, I really like Mission Impossible 3. I think that's where you kind of got the stride of where things are going to go forward.
Agreed.
Of course, Mission Impossible 4, oh my god, climbing up the, they're in Dubai.
That's basically the one where Tom Cruise is like, oh yeah, this is basically going to be back to me, doing all the stunts that I can.
Yeah, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, I think, was kind of a step down from Ghost Protocol, but still really entertaining. And of course, Fallout. Some people are calling it one of the greatest action films of all time. I do see what they're going for. I might have to marinate on that sentiment, but definitely better action than the Predator. Yeah. And of course, because that fight in the bathroom.
Yeah, that fight in the bathroom was amazing. Like, really well choreographed action. Some of the best action I've probably seen all year. And even though the story wasn't the best that I've seen, it was enough where they were able to subvert enough of the Mission Impossible tropes that it didn't bother me too much. And I was able to have a really, really thoroughly enjoyable time. And the action set piece, it was really like, it was like a spy movie of old, where it's like, okay, this movie I can tell is legitimately trying to actually try and give us something new and cool. And I think it did its job for the most part really, really well.
I also really love those masks that they wear.
They played around with that a lot, and I think they did a really good job with that in this movie.
They actually caught me off guard. It was point because I saw this movie with my brother, and I remember he was saying, "Oh man, this movie's crazy." Because it's like I really want Mission Impossible 7 now. Bring them on. Just keep them coming.
Keep them coming. Like Tom Cruise, keep going. Even if Jeremy Renner couldn't be back for this one, like they still made it work without him. So
yeah, definitely. And so number 2, I'm probably gonna go with Deadpool 2 because I don't think it's as good as the first Deadpool. I think it's really entertaining. Again, I'll probably have to marinate on it more, but still hilarious, still funny, some really great action. The entire it's like, do you think that Disney is going to screw around with Deadpool?
I honestly have no idea. And honestly, I don't even want to think about it for right now.
I know Bob Iger said that that they're open to the idea, but I just think because I know in the first Deadpool, they had like the montage of like they're like Merry Christmas, and I don't know if they can do that.
They can't. They just can't because Disney has a very specific model. So like, it's so funny too because there were certain points of this movie where I was thinking, yeah, they're literally just trying to squeeze in everything because they had Cable, they had Domino, they had X-Force, they had Juggernaut, they had that school that was like kind of being like a ripoff of the X school. They even had like threw in a little joke, finally including some other X-Men. Like it's almost like this movie was trying to squeeze in every possible comic book element they could before Disney comes in and pulls the plug on them and makes them more mainstream and traditional.
Because I thought it was funny how they killed off the entire X-Force.
That's still the best joke in the entire movie.
And Vanisher was...
Yeah, Deadpool 2 I actually think is better than the first one. I think that they do a lot more with this character, and I think actually kind of like the story more, and I actually like the meta humor way more in this one than I do in the first one. As much as I enjoyed it in the first one, I still like... I do this weird thing where I end up taking quotes from movies and using them in my real life, and it often throws a lot of people off, and I do that a lot with Deadpool, and I've been doing it a lot with Deadpool 2.
This is actually a line from Deadpool 1, but I really love that line where Wade shows up at the mansion. He's like, "Hey, Ripley from Alien 3.
From Alien 3.
And then she's like, "How old are you?"
She's like, "Oh God, you're old."
Or,
that was great.
I also like the humor, like or they're talking about, hey, how come like I always come here, but you two are the only like
and how they even did that better in this one, where it's just like, where is everyone? The only two people I ever see here are you and Negasonic Teenage and Negasonic name that's way too long or something like that. And then like it's the brief shot of the X-Men in the background and the Beast is just closing the door. I laughed like crazy.
Yeah, they don't want anything to do with
it. No, they don't. They're like, oh my God, we don't want anything to do with you.
But number one, I think this is I'm going to count it as a summer movie.
You're going to count it?
It kicked off the summer.
It did kick off, even if it did come out a week before. And like I said, the only reason why is because it just missed the window. If it had been that May 1st, it absolutely would have been top of the summer. But for me, it just missed that window. That, and I've already talked about that.
Okay, so yeah, number one is going to be Infinity War, because one of the best film experiences I've ever had in the theater. Warner Brothers, this is how you build up, and this is how you have a payoff, because people have been invested in this universe for like 10 years now when you think about it, and just seeing them all together, and like these are characters people care about. Like I don't care about the Flash or like Cyborg in like the Justice League movie. Like, why should I care? I mean I like Cyborg because of, I watched Teen Titans as a kid, but why should I care about him here? But Infinity War, it's like, plus I love the Thanos character. This could have been like a Thanos movie.
It was a Thanos movie is the best part. Like, even with all the different people that were in this movie. And just like to throw it back real quick to Josh Brolin a second. I was literally just having a conversation before we started with my buddy about this. And that is literally where Josh Brolin gives such a good performance in this movie that he transcends. Like, but him continuing off of what Michael B. Jordan did in Black Panther. But I would even say Josh Brolin does a tougher job because he's doing a motion capture CG performance. Is where his performance is so good that it shines through the material that he's given and elevates that character. Like, literally, no joke, Josh Brolin's performance in that movie is literally like best of the year caliber performance for me. From a Marvel movie of all things, not just a Marvel motion capture CG voiceover performance. And that's how good that performance was.
People were making jokes that Thanos looked like Rick Harrison from Pawn Stars.
I don't know. I don't get that reference, but my biggest thing was that he, again, like the nutsack chin, that like he looked like a shriveled grape or something like that.
He looked like Grimace from McDonald's.
Yeah, Grimace, like a whole bunch of jokes, but like he made it work. Like he demolished them. Like he made his way through them, kicking off the movie by destroying the Hulk within the first 3 minutes, and then making his way through the rest of the team like cake batter. Like, my God.
Yeah, and also just the experience of watching a crowd of people were like shouting. People people were like disintegrating. Like people, like when Spider-Man,
when Spider-Man goes, when Black Panther goes, and it's all the people that you're not expecting either.
And you should have heard the crowd. People were like, no, like I never heard people say stuff like that during a DC movie.
Yeah,
because it's like. This is kind of connecting to what we were talking about earlier, but people aren't connected to these characters. That's the reason why I don't think people really like. I didn't really feel anything. Did you feel anything when Superman died?
Not even a little bit.
Because I'm not really attached to this character. I mean, I like Henry Cavill, but I'm not really with them yet.
Right, exactly, because they haven't given their characters enough time to grow and like be enveloped and loved as much. That's the thing. Because again, I hate to say it, but the thing that Marvel did and made it work is that they turned their film series into a TV series with a showrunner, and DC just does not have that, and they don't understand that that's what it takes to make it work. And the problem is they can't do it now because Marvel has been doing it so well for so long that even if they tried to do it and somehow started to make it work now, they would just be criticized for being too similar to Marvel, and that would cause them to go off and make even more mistakes. So, again, it's literally the definition of being stuck between a rock and a hard place, especially with their Justice League, which was supposed to be their Avengers, being such a major flop on so many different reasons, and then not even 6 months later, Infinity War comes out and blows the doors off of pop culture as we know it. So
yeah, definitely excited for Avengers 4, and so what do you want to move on to?
Yeah, so just to wrap this podcast up, I'm just going to go through like a quick list. Garrick, I think I'm mostly just going to focus this one on me, and you can just tell me like what your thoughts are on these films. I'm just going to run down some of the films that I'm looking forward to for the rest of the year. Just to kick it off, obviously Halloween is a big one that we're looking forward to, the reboot from David Gordon Green.
Heard good things about that movie.
Yes, a couple other films that are coming out, going right to Netflix. Netflix is attracting a lot of talent. You've got Ballet of Buster Scruggs, which is the next anthology film from the Coen brothers. You've got 22nd July, which is the next film, which is directed by Paul Greengrass, but features an almost entirely Norwegian cast. You've got David Lowery's next movie, The Old Man and the Gun, which is another supposed final performance from a Hollywood legend in Robert Redford. You've got the next Oscar Vincent Van Gogh vehicle, At Eternity's Gate, starring Willem Dafoe. You've got David Mackenzie's next film going right to Netflix, The Outlaw King, starring Chris Pine. You have Jason Reitman's second film this year, actually, The Frontrunner, starring Hugh Jackman. That got good reviews coming out of TIFF. You've got another A24 film called Never Going Back that I'm very much looking forward to. Paul Dano's directorial debut, bought by IFC Films, which is called Wildlife. Jeremy Saulnier's next film that is going direct to Netflix that actually comes out on Netflix next week is called Hold the Dark, starring Jeffrey Wright and Alexander Skarsgård. And then the top two that just narrowly missed out on being in my top 10, and that is Bad Times at the El Royale, which is the next film from Drew Goddard, and Bohemian Rhapsody, the infamous Freddie Mercury biopic, Queen biopic, that has been many years in developing, that is finally being released to the big screen. So, just run through my basic top 10 for what I'm looking forward to for the rest of the year. My number 10 is Roma, which is the next film from Alfonso Cuarón, shot entirely in black and white, primarily unknown cast. Got rave reviews coming out of TIFF. Looks like a very simple story. Looks like it could be a hearkening back to an older style of filmmaking that I am very much looking forward to, that has been, for the most part, lacking from the last couple of years. Number 9 is talk about old school filmmaking, is a film that people never even thought was going to be made, and that is the final film from the late, great Orson Welles, The Other Side of the Wind. Now, Garrick, have you heard anything about this movie?
No, I haven't.
Well, basically, it was a film that Orson Welles had been working on for a while that never got finished. I believe it was supposed to be something along the lines of 9, the film with Daniel Day-Lewis that came out back in 2009, where it was a film that featured a film director that was working on a project, and the film was surrounding the speculation surrounding the film. And it was almost kind of like a commentary on the media and how they constantly pounced on and covered films. And the fact that they're releasing the film today, and the film was, I believe, cut, shot, and edited entirely between 1948 and 1950 something. You might want to fact check me on that. And it's coming out today, and it still looks relevant, and it still looks amazing. It was cut together by a master editing team. I don't know if there's any new footage that was shot for it, but that's another one that's going directly to Netflix. Starring such critically acclaimed directors as John Huston and Peter Bogdanovich. They will literally be brought back to life, and we will see them on screen again one last time. Then at number 8, we have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which the artistic style surrounding that movie alone is incredible. But the fact that for a movie that I was not looking forward to at all, because, again, it was another Spider-Man film coming exclusively from Sony, and now it looks like Sony is going to do the Miles Morales arc of Spider-Man better in animation than they did in live action, because I think they just completely butchered that arc in Spider-Man Homecoming completely. An amazing, incredible cast, and I'm very much looking forward to Shameik Moore as Miles is great. Brian Tyree Henry and Mahershala Ali as his dad and his uncle, respectively. Jake Johnson as Peter Parker is great. Lily Tomlin as Aunt May. Liev Schreiber as the Kingpin. Haley Steinfeld as Spider-Gwen. That looks awesome, so really looking forward to that. Also, I'm pretty sure written and produced by Lord and Miller, because those two, like I said, if there's two people that Sony seems to work well with, it's those two. And at number 7, you have Suspiria, which is Luca Guadagnino's next film that is following up Call Me By Your Name. It is a remake of a 70s film that is about a dance academy starring Dakota Johnson and Tilda Swinton. This film was shocking me because I don't think this film actually premiered at TIFF, but it's been getting a lot of good press, a lot of good reviews. And the trailers for that look absolutely amazing. So really, really looking forward to that. I can't really talk about it though because I don't really know anything about it. So that's a big thing with me. Then you have my number 6, which is Widows, which is a film that has a premise that is just awesome, for lack of a better word. Now, have you heard anything about this film?
I know it's directed by Steve McQueen from 12 Years a Slave fame. I know it's written by, I believe it's
Gillian Flynn.
Yeah, of Gone Girl.
Yes.
So.
And so basically the premise of this film is that Viola Davis, Michelle Rodriguez, Cynthia Erivo, and Elizabeth Debicki all portray women who are married, who are the wives of this group of criminals who are led by Liam Neeson, who is married to Viola Davis. John Bernthal also is one of the criminals. They all get killed on a heist, basically. You even see it in the trailer. And so the women decide to take up the rest of the heist because apparently the criminals owed some money to the wrong people in the form of Daniel Kaluuya from Get Out, who apparently in the reviews coming out of TIFF say he is the best part about the movie, that he plays a stone cold murderous psychopath, which is awesome because I feel like that guy has so much range. And basically they decide to take up the job and finish it itself. It's also got such supporting players. Besides Daniel Kaluuya, you've got another film with Brian Tyree Henry in it from Atlanta. That guy is now all over the place after Atlanta. Colin Farrell's in this movie. Robert Duvall is in this movie. So yeah, really looking forward to that one. And then breaking into the top 5, I'm just going to run through these really quick. Number 5 is A Star is Born, remake of a classic film that is actually remade. This is actually the 3rd time this film is being remade, this time both starring and directed by Bradley Cooper in his directorial debut.
Lots of good reviews, I think.
Yeah, lots of good reviews coming out of TIFF. So a lot of stuff that I'm really looking forward to there. Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga both look like they're going to crush it on screen completely. So I'm very much looking forward to that. The music looks great. Just everything about it looks great. Then number 4 is a film called Beautiful Boy, which is directed by I forget the name of this director. He's a foreign director named Felix von
Groningen.
Groningen. Okay, so I wasn't too far off.
Groningen is what I did after seeing The Predator. I feel like we're really bashing on The Predator here.
Oh, we are, and honestly, it kind of deserves it. So basically, A Beautiful Boy looks like it looks like a very touching, very beautiful, very emotional film starring Steve Carell and Timothée Chalamet as a father and son who are trying to reforge a bond even though Chalamet is addicted to meth. It looks like an absolutely amazing, beautiful story. Carell looks like an all-time great. Chalamet is looking like they are priming him for another Oscar nomination because Chalamet was one of the biggest hot things to come out of last year's Oscars. And, definitely not a contender for the popular film category, I would say, because probably a maximum outside of TIFF, I can't say that a lot of people are going to be seeing this film. And the number 3 is Assassination Nation, which is another film that Neon picked up and could follow in their solid track record they've had since last year after I, Tonya and Ingrid Goes West. And it's basically, the premise is that it's a bunch of girls who are like all on social media and have like a bunch of dirt on a bunch of people on social media, but the problem is the entire town ends up getting hacked, so all their social media secrets end up like being leaked online, and then basically the entire second half of the film, basically it becomes like a battle royale purge-esque scenario where everybody's just trying to kill each other. And so that looks awesome because that could be like another really super dark, messed up satire on social media, following up on what Ingrid Goes West did really well last year. And then my number 2 is Under the Silver Lake, which is the next film from David Robert Mitchell, the director of It Follows, which follows Andrew Garfield as he investigates the disappearance of his neighbor. It looks like a modern day noir with comedy elements to it. And then my number 1, the absolute most anticipated that I have for the entire rest of the year, is the officially titled now Vice, formerly known as Backseat and Cheney, which is Adam McKay's follow-up to The Big Short in this new sect of his career that he has, making like documentary-esque real life stories. And this one will be all about a biopic following Dick Cheney, the legendary Dick Cheney himself, for obvious reasons, who will be portrayed in the film by Christian Bale. Another amazing all-star cast that he's got. He's got Amy Adams in this as his wife. He's got Steve Carell,
Sam
Bill
Rockwell.
Pullman, Sam Rockwell's playing George W. Bush, Tyler Perry. Like, come on. Just the star power alone involved.
I guarantee
in this.
you, this movie is going to get serious Oscar consideration.
Yes, and not for the best popular film category. That's another thing that I keep harping on because
that's a rant for
another day. So
read my article if you want to see more.
Yeah, pretty much. Tune into the Laker review every week. So, Garrick, you have anything that you want to incorporate on any one of those movies? Like anything that piques your interest, for lack of a better word?
I think you added a lot. Like, if you're a true film fan, you'll really be excited for this.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to do here as well, is that I'm also trying to get our listeners, for lack of a better word, to tune into, some other films other than the big topics of discussion,
Yeah, definitely the new Adam McKay movie, Vice, because, of course, The Big Short, even though I wasn't really attuned to a lot of the financial jargon in the movie, they also acknowledged that in that movie.
Yeah, they did a really good job of acknowledging that, and that's one of that movie's high points.
But Vice, like, I'm telling you, I think we discussed this another time. Adam McKay will make a Donald Trump biopic.
Oh, it's going to happen. It's absolutely going to happen. In fact, my friend and I actually casted it already, and that'll be a thing for a different day, where we already cast a fictional Donald Trump biopic directed by Adam McKay. Like, he has to do it, right? Because I'm sorry, Oliver Stone's chance came and went, with that movie.
Maybe,
so
if this was the 90s,
If it was the 90s, maybe. But the other big thing is that Donald Trump was still, on The Apprentice, I'm pretty sure, in the 90s, so...
Did you know that, have you seen Wall Street Money Never Sleeps?
No, I've not seen that. I've seen the first Wall Street, not the sequel, though.
Did you know that Donald Trump has a cameo in that movie?
I did not.
It's a deleted scene. It's like at a barbershop, him and Michael Douglas have a share scene. So once it's over, check it out.
Oh, I definitely will. That's his cameo in Home Alone 2 is already enough for nightmare fuel enough for me. But so about almost half an hour over, but I'd say that for the first episode of the Laker Movie Nerd Review podcast, this was a pretty good installment. We will be back very soon with much more content because we may be almost done with 2018, but there is still a lot more to talk about. So I am Dom.
I'm Garrett.
And this has been the Laker Movie Nerd Review podcast. Before we get out of here, though, Garrett, is there any place that the good people can find you on the webs?
You can find me on Twitter at Garrick Groover, where you can find my latest takes on everything from movies to TV to even maybe some video games. I'll put some stuff up on there, so definitely follow me if you're into that stuff.
Yeah, and you can also obviously tune into the Laker Review issue every week. The new articles are published online at Oswegonian.com/Laker Review, and also the new physical copies you can find at all of your local newspaper stands everywhere around campus at SUNY Oswego. And as for myself, Dominic Rizzi, the Movie Nerd, you can find me on Twitter at Movie Nerd Review. Also go to one of my two websites, MovieNerdReviews.com and letterboxd.com/Dom81797 on Instagram at my name, Dominic Rizzi. And also, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Movie Nerd Reviews, where this will hopefully be going up. That is it. That is the end of episode 1. We will see you guys next time.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Say what again? Say what again?
Why so serious?
Watch what happens. Well, what happened is this bull would go right through your fucking head. Watch what happens.
I am the one who knocks.